Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take it.
take it at midfield.
Okay,
Just
so
go right now.
I'll
Go to
take
camera
one.
3.
Can
3.
you
Go
put-
to the
Thank
perfect,
you.
just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first.
Okay.
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go. Yep.
Can you
Go to the perfect,
Thank you.
just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q. Sophie.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
Yep, go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It is Friday night, April 4th. April already. Happy at the Balboa Yacht Club. Good to see you guys. Great to start the weekend off with you guys. As usual, place for us Zonians to get together and of course, cheers and salute everybody and toast to our great Zonian heritage. But before we get started, just on a bit of a somber note, a couple of people in the last 24 hours have made their way to heaven, and we just want to honor them. I don't normally do that, but this time it was it hit close to home. But anyway, salute to everybody there. But anyhow, Ricky, happy Friday to you, man. What's going on?
Happy Friday, like always, Willie. Thank you for having me on the show as your co-host. You guys, it is Friday, like Willie said, 5 p.m. in the West Coast. A very nice 59 degrees out here, Willie. But anyways, hello, everyone, and welcome to Happy Hour at the Balboa Yacht Club, also known as the Canal House in Panama, a place where you can always run into Panama Zonians that live down there. You know, like always, this is a weekly show that loves to start with the toast. So salute to all you Zonians out there and all you
Salute.
who love to watch our show.
Mm. Yes, indeed. Amen. Cheers to you too, Rich. And real quick, guys, as we can see on the screen there, please don't forget to go to YouTube. Even if you're watching on Facebook, head over to YouTube real quick and hit the subscribe button there, so we get a couple more subscribers. Hit the notifications, the bells, all those good things. But help us grow the channel by subscribing and helping that YouTube algorithm to spread the word more. We're getting a lot more people watching from Panama. Our friends from the Kiwanis certainly helped out quite a bit with that, when they joined us a couple of weeks ago, because got a lot of people from Panama, from that Kiwanis group, and just in general from Panama. And of course, through Ricky's Bochinche and just general chatter, we do talk a lot about Panama, not just the Canal Zone. In fact, as Ricky will mention later here, we have a drive to build a community that involves that whole concept of the canal zone not just being something from the past, but an ongoing thing that's evolving, and it's constantly growing, and it's still here. So, but anyhow, let's just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel whenever you get a chance, please.
Yep. As you guys know, Willie and I both born and raised in the Canal Zone, and we bring you guys a weekly show where the Canal Zone comes alive. So, Willie, are you ready to meet the Silver Roll La Boca?
Yeah, that's going to be quite a story. I'm excited for, Dave Dalston's going to join us and talk, of course, our Canal Zone historian. And he's always got some fascinating history, most of which we've learned has been around the evolution of the whole Canal Zone concept, right? The whole Panama being born as a country and how that came about, that history. And then, of course, the construction piece, we've learned a lot from that. But now we've been transitioning towards more of the construction of the canal zone itself, outside of the canal. Once the canal was built, now we needed to get places for people to live, places for people to play football, right? To go to school, to do all the things that we were going to do. And so, it's fascinating to see where Panama was, or where the canal zone was, as far as actual land and territory before the canal was built. Most of what we grew up in Balboa was swampland, or was part of the ocean. It was part of the Pacific there, right? A lot of it was filled in, and all that dirt that was excavated. We talk about this monumental Culebra Cut excavation. Well, all that dirt and rock had to be put somewhere, and it was used to create what became our home, Balboa, and that whole Central Atlantic side piece or a Pacific side piece. On the Atlantic side, the entire Gatun Lake was created by damming up the Chagres, and that was a gigantic man-made dam. The piece that we're used to seeing up above the ground, the concrete piece, is dwarfed by what was underwater and extended, which is an earthen dam, which is massive. And again, that was a bunch of that dirt excavated from building the canal itself. So we're into that phase now with Dave where we're learning about the canal zone in the early era. The canal zone itself changed in many ways as to what it looked like, who lived where, and what the different privileges were. And like you said, it's that silver Laboca, and the silver and gold rolls take a certain connotation, and it's important to understand where that comes from and where there may be some parallels, but there can be some misconceptions there, and it'll be interesting to have Dave on to kind of explain where that comes from and why it appears to be a certain way, but it really isn't the case necessarily. So that should be fun to learn about. I'm excited for that Laboca area. I hung on Laboca a lot growing up, but it wasn't the Laboca that we're going to learn about today. That's for sure.
That is correct. But yeah, they call it, I guess we're going back to like 1908 around that area. 1907, 1908.
Yeah, they once they finished the canal or they were completing it, it wasn't necessarily completely finished yet, but now a lot of the work shifted over to, this is a big operation. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that there's a place for all these people to live and a good place where, as Dave pointed out, that we learned early on, Panama back in the day, construction was not a place like, oh my God, exciting, we're going to Panama, right? It was, you had to convince people to go. And so they had to create a nice place to live.
And not only convince them, they may keep them in there. And
right, exactly. So that's where you started building that component of it now is the Balboa and the Laboca and Diablo, Los Rios and Ancon and everything that we grew up and loved to ride our bikes in and run around and play Ring Alivio in the evenings and all that was a great community that was all, for the most part, built and created there on land that really wasn't there at that time. So
yeah,
it's going to be cool to learn that. I'm excited for that.
Me too, man. So let's do another toast.
Yes, very excited for that. Very excited for that to happen. Hey, Jim, good to see you back on here. We had a great conversation the other day. I'm definitely going to have Jim on later on in the season, probably closer to June or maybe even after the reunion. More than likely after the reunion, so we get a chance to chat about. He's got a big history there. Again, someone else that has a multi-generational history in the Canal Zone. He was born down there as well and had parents, grandparents that were part of the Canal Zone, and quite an awesome story. He sent me a ton of pictures. Which, by the way, the Pan Canal Museum collection, they had a great event last weekend, and he sent me a lot of pictures there. So we're going to put those together probably next week if we have time to share those as well and share that event, which is, again, guys, a great organization to help preserve that old Canal Zone legacy, that we had down there before the treaty and before we've evolved to this new Canal Zone legacy that we're working on, which Ricky will talk about here just a bit as well.
Talk about in our very next segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but in the meantime, let's say hello to a couple of folks on here that are chiming in. Good to see you again, Leaf, on here. Are you going to talk about selling of the road? As a matter of fact, I am. I actually received an email from the CFO of the railroad to tell me some things about that. He's a friend of the show, but we'll talk about that here shortly because that is big news. A lot of things going on in Panama that Ricky covered in his Bochinche, and then I'm going to talk about, again, that railroad piece. Former President Martinelli. This is a saga that doesn't end. It's a novella that's playing out right before our eyes. So I've got some insight on that as well, on some intrigue, some diplomatic intrigue going on there that we're going to address as well. But that'll be shortly after the Bochinche, and then of course our Canal Zone historian Dave Dalton, who's in the bullpen, ready to show us a lot of history of Laboca. So yeah, awesome pictures, Jim. Thank you so much for sending in some amazing pictures. By the way, really excited on Sunday. Two things going on Sunday. Sunday evening, I'm going out to dinner with Georgia Teeth. We're gonna talk about an upcoming show that we're working on for healthy eating that we've been developing, and we're getting ready to launch that. In addition to that, Warren Gibbs, whose sons we showed you guys a couple of weeks ago, featured on here with some amazing MMA fighting skills. He reached out to me the other day, and he found a bunch of old pictures that he had. When you're in high school, you go and do that work program where you work in the zone somewhere or whatever. Well, he worked at Graphics Branch, and he acquired a lot of old pictures. And he's like, "Hey man, I got all these pictures." He goes, "I know you're into that Canal Zone history. If you want, they're yours." I'm like, "Absolutely." And he gave me his address, and holy cow, he's he's just a couple miles away from me. So I'll be there Sunday to pick those up. I'm excited to get some of those old pictures and whatnot. But that should be a lot of fun. Remember the mango fights? Yes, indeed, man. Listen, mango fights were brutal because the mango was the perfect fruit or the perfect tool, I guess, the weapon to use because during mango season they were everywhere and they fit right in your hand where you could get a good throw off those things, man. And they had some good weight to them. They would travel, man.
Yeah,
You
a
know,
little bigger than a baseball, but smaller than a softball. So it was right in that perfect,
correct.
that perfect zone.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was that was pretty interesting, and so we're gonna find out about that. No, he did not leave. He did not get fired.
You
Usually
know what?
using
That was a concern for
your
all
good
of us
tact
this
there, but
morning. It was a concern for all of us about changing that admin, and thank
yeah,
God
no, absolutely.
he's staying.
Because
Yeah.
hmm but a lot of changes in Panama. It's amazing how that country in the last month and a half, and some of it due to what's happened
It's
with the
the
president.
center
Some of
of
it
the
just has
world,
happened,
man.
but
It's
unbelievable how it's just a whirlwind of information there. I I
I don't
listen to
know.
that Panama radio every morning. It's amazing.
I think even North Korea loves Panama. You know what I mean? There's in a country out
Everybody
there
does.
that is saying, F those Panamanians. They're not doing this right or that right. Not zero. Everybody's like, right on, Panama. Let's keep it going. Well,
I
speaking
mean,
of
now the
that,
British
guys,
are getting in with the railroad as well. So yeah, but no, go ahead, do your thing,
yeah,
and then we
let's
can
do.
move
Let's get
along here.
into some. Let's talk a little bit about what Willie and I are collaborating with a few other guys. We have briefly mentioned it before, guys, but tonight we really want to talk about this collaboration that we've been doing with Alex Reyes' group and Shorty and Slim and the Canal Reunion, as well as Thane Wheeler, who's doing
Yep, with the Canal Zone documentary.
with our show. The three of us are doing this collaboration to honor the Zonian. Okay, so we're this collaboration, guys, that we're doing. And I want you guys to pay attention. Is to build community, right? A collaboration to celebrate our past, a collaboration to celebrate the richness of our history. Okay. So what we're trying to do is we're making history and preserving it at the same time, guys. So what we're doing is what we're trying to do is collect all you guys, because we are scattered out like Willie's been telling us for forever in the last year. We've talked about bringing you guys together, and this is what we're trying to do. And the reason we're trying to bring you together is for you to share share your photos with us, share your videos with us, music, whatever product you're selling, anything related to the canals. We want to kind of bring it into one place, and from there, many things can happen, can branch off. Thing can do his documentary. B, whoever wants to research the Zonian culture and who we were, there's this place. C, you guys will have a commissary to buy everything Zonian related. So it's an effort to bring you guys all together. On the Facebook group is called Panama Canal Zonians. Make sure you sign up for it. It's not a place to go debate politics or anything like that. It's a place just to go see, leave your history, leave some pictures. If you want to sell something, that's the place to do it. Canal Zone related. And then on Instagram, it could be found at PC Zonians. And of course, every Friday you could find us here. PC Zonians is ran by Thane on Instagram. So you guys I'm sure you've seen his stuff because he's got about 2,000 plus followers. So it's a collaboration to make it a very strong attempt to bring you guys all together so that we can collect this information and have it there as a DNA database for documentaries, movies, stories, you name it. Okay, that's the intent. Now, there's a couple other things that I want to talk about that about this collaboration. We've come out with a couple of house rules, and I hope you guys don't take this too like we're being aggressive, but it's very important that we follow these house rules. One is we got to stop saying, guys, that the Canal Zone is gone. All right, the Canal Zone is not gone. Or we have to save our past, like with this sense of urgency. We want to make sure that that's not true, that we need to eliminate that. Or paradise is lost. We want to ban that narrative if we can. That's our attempt, is to ban that narrative, eliminate it from the Zonian vocabulary. Why? Because, we're here to celebrate our past. The word celebrate the richness of our history, right? Like Alex Reyes said, his motto is making history and preserving it at the same time. All right, so that's kind of like the Zonian culture is here to stay. Now, what do I mean by that? Listen, in Panama, they're still using streets of famous Americans, right? They do Halloween, they do Thanksgiving, 4th of July, and like Alex says, they really do it. In other words, it's not small, it's big events. They also do tree burns. The Hasher runs, which I wish somebody would tell me what that is. I have no idea what that is, but it's a Zonian tradition, and as well as the Cayuca races. Now, we also have 53 years of football in Panama, which Panamanian football has gotten to such a level that their games are televised internationally. Why? Because they've been coming to the United States and whooping the Americans. So it's something to see, right? Listen, guys, our military bases are still there. They're still called Albrook, Howard, Clayton, Sherman. I'm not sure about Kobe, though. I don't know if, Willie, you've heard anything about if there's still Kobe's there is not.
I haven't, and Clayton is now it's called the Ciudad del Saber, but nonetheless,
Right.
I mean
But
the
Clayton still
history,
calls it Clayton,
is,
though. Like Howard's got another name, but even the president calls it Howard. Well, guys, listen, the Zonian culture is ingrained in the Panamanian culture. They actually call us a subculture, which is something we're going to be talking about next week. Just like the Chinese, by the way, Willie, 30% of Panamanian DNA is Chinese. 30. That's a huge number. Cultures such as Panamanian cultures is also made up of Indian, Afro-Antillean, Italiano, Spanish, as well as some Middle Eastern cultures. But more than any culture, the Zonian culture is the one that stands out the most. And why? Because we formed the country and the Panama Canal. We're the architects of the nation, basically. So saying that we have, we're losing, no more, guys. We're not losing anything, all right? We're here, we're making history, and we're preserving it. And how do we do that? The reunions in Panama, the reunions Orlando, this show, the Facebook group and the Instagram group for you guys to come in and give us that data so that they can, build a big database, and then we can put out some good movies and good documentaries and more shows like this, or whatever, even more reunions. But that's the intent that we have. Alex Reyes, Thane Wheeler, and SCN Canal Zone Podcasts. And that is what I have for you guys today on that.
Yeah, it's built that community, guys. It's
built a community, guys. Very important that we really understand that we have to do that, because it's us and that's it.
Yeah. And speaking of communities, obviously there's a lot of groups out there and stuff, and we wanted to say hello to one group that's hanging out right now, currently up in Savannah, Georgia.
Yes.
So some ladies are up there that are hanging out celebrating, so they wanted to say hello to them. So hi, ladies, have a great time in Savannah and representing the Canal Zone. That's quite a a group of ladies there. So
Willie, there's
very cool.
17 of them. This is their
That's
third. This
awesome.
is their third year anniversary of the girls.
That's so cool.
From the 89 to the 91 class coming
Yeah.
together, and these girls hang out, and I mean they party. And then we did talk about it last year. Well, it's a bunch of cheerleaders and football managers and just girls that grew up together. You know, went to the Causeway, went to the Yacht Club together, went to the.
Yeah.
These are those girls. When I've got a list, if you want to know who's there, Willie, I got the secret list. Well, my little sister's one of them. Raina, she's there. Xenia Morris, the wife of Tommy Morris. Angie Garcia, Christina Yanes, Yvonne Fishba, who's normally on our show. Christine, all the coaches' daughters are there. Christine Stromberg, Adrienne Rowley, Jenny Sweeney, the daughters, man, the coaches' daughters. Leanne Watkins is there as well. Brandy Huff, Teresa Monson, the beautiful Christy Ford, Tammy Bolin, Pam Shell, the very beautiful Lisa Sasso, Christine Brayton, that's Little Anderson's wife, and Lisa Hunt. That's a good group of chicks there, man, that are having an incredible time in Savannah, Georgia. Did I just say chicks? I am so sorry about that. Sorry. Incredible women, not chicks. What am I saying? Sorry about that. But, you know, the Canal's on, you guys are chicks.
That's Ricky for you. As my wife refers to this Pepe Le Pew. Anyway, but have fun, ladies. Be safe out there, but have fun in Savannah.
Yes,
enjoy yourself.
Stay safe, so we can have some more reunions with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, that's cool, man. That's 17. That's quite a group, man. I mean, that's an accomplishment. I've said it many times that getting Zonians together is like herding cats. So if you can pull that off and get 17 ladies together in one place. Right on. Well done. I know I got some event planners that I need to hit up if I ever need something. Because
we don't give the cheerleaders and the managers enough credit, and that was such a big part of our football culture. Was those two groups? I mean, they truly made the whole event. You know, it rounded out the whole event because it was just a football game. It was like
for sure.
a pageant. You know, a pageant. It's a lot of stuff going on, from parades and the clowns and the marching bands and the band and the bleachers and the parents. Oh my God, it was So they were a big part of our culture.
They did well. They stayed busy. They were good. And Chris Jeffries from Rockford, Illinois. Right on. That's one of those cargo airports, you know, that that's out of O'Hare, outside of Chicago. But he's there, you know, flying the big Boeing jets in and out of there now. But cool, good to see you out there. Enjoy Rockford and stay out of the rain. Then Leaf looking, he does have the golden EIB microphone is what he's sitting in front of there. It's not golden, but he's got it matching his outfit there. Ricky's all he's all slicked up. Look at him.
Yeah. I can change the colors, guys.
Look at this guy. See, you give this guy toys, man, and he's
Willie bought me this, so you should have known better, Willie, man.
It's good though. It works well for you. You look good on that mic there. So,
all right.
The Chiba pedal bus. Imagine that, huh? The Chiba. You know, that's one thing I'm looking forward to doing when we get down there next January is the Chiba pedal bus. You know
what? And we know why they're called Chivas. We know why they're called Chivas. They're called Chivas because it was an Indian company that started that business.
Correct.
So they used that little goddess with the elephant thing. And that's how they got the name Chiva.
Sure did. Absolutely. Those are so cool. I remember riding those.
Yes,
they had that really unique sound because you could hear the whole engine. It had almost a whining sound of the engine.
You knew it was going to make it up the hill. Yeah. That guy with double clutch, that thing, man.
Right.
And you knew they were going to make it up no matter what, man. Those things never got stuck.
Yeah, he is looking very dapper, Chris. Indeed, he is in the purple shirt. Very dapper there. Now, of course, now he changed the color on his mic, but he had it matching the shirt there just a moment ago.
Guys, I'm colorblind, so to me, blue, purple, all the same color, man. So
it looks good. What I was saying is you had the mic, you had switched the color on the mic, it was matching your shirt.
No way.
And
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
and now it's not. So that's,
Oh, I can
but
get
that's
it back. I can get it back. Wait, couple taps. That it?
yeah. No, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there, right there. Perfect.
Oh, let's
No, you passed it. Now you got to go hit it 17
move
times
on. Let's
again.
move on. We got
We'll get
David on
over
this.
it.
We got to get David on
Yeah,
this. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, my green screen is messing up. It absolutely is. Leaf, this has been a kind of a pain in the ass. I actually don't have the green screen turned on, but when I do it, it causes a lot of lag for whatever reason. So I got to figure something out. I'm not sure why, because I have this is a quite a machine that I have. I've got quite the graphics card on it. I got 64 gig of RAM, so it's not lacking for power. But something happens when I turn the green screen feature on, which would take all that away, but it really creates a lot of lag. So more to
yeah.
come. If not, I'm gonna just go back to the old one and have just my
Yeah, we
my
might just
my
go back to the old
background
one
here.
because I kind of like
So
I kind
we'll
of miss it.
see.
Yeah.
But hola, Steve. Good to see you from Georgia. Looking forward to having Steve on next week, guys. He's the author of this awesome book, Final Flight: Queen of the Air. This is a true crime story. He co-wrote it with Jesus Romero, who's a former naval intelligence officer, and Steve Zonian, Steve Tochterman, is a former FAA special agent. So that should be exciting. I'm looking forward to
Oh
that story, and,
yes.
and and you know we've got some questions about other things which will play in really well with our talk of the Darien area and stuff. Something
Next
that that
week,
that I think
incredible.
about when I think about Darien, and especially when I think about somebody like Steve with his FAA background was that Copa Airlines plane that went down there back in '92. I knew some of the crew on there because when I used to work at Copa, they were there.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and very sad, and I and I have somewhat of an aviation background myself, so I kind of understand what happened and what went wrong, and some of it was preventable, but nonetheless I don't want to offend anybody or anything,
Yes,
but
because we got to
it
move
was
on,
sad.
Mr.
It was
Willie.
sad. One of the flight attendants was supposed to be
TJ.
uh, on that flight. One of the flight attendants was supposed to be going to San Juan, and she didn't have her passport, so they switched her, and she switched flights with somebody else, and unfortunately because of that she was on that plane, and that was a sad story. That was Koopa's only accident, fatality, but anyhow, that's part of that
Yeah,
Darien stuff. So we're going to learn about that stuff from
yeah.
Steve as far as you know the FAA and flying, and a lot of that area that Darien, we talk about it as far as migrants coming through there, but there's a whole nother facet of that area that involves the guerrillas on the Colombian side with all the civil war that's been going on there. It seems like forever. And then of course all the drug traffickers in the labs and everything. Pablo Escobar died back in the day, but that didn't end the Colombian drug trade. It just kind of shifted gears. They were still making stuff. They're just moving it to Mexico and then crossing there. But a lot of it still was crossing the border into Panama, and they were using a lot of that supposed uh, inhospitable area that you could cross. But as we learned over the last 4 years, there wasn't as inhospitable as everybody thought. But we're going to learn a lot more about that next week from Steve and from our other guests that are going to be joining us, Matt Tomlett and Michael Yon, who spent a lot of time in Darien recently. And they're going to talk about what's going on there and what potentially down the road could be, you know, a double-sided coin, so a benefit of trade with this inter-American highway finally getting all the way through, but at the same time, is it an avenue for a lot of other things to come through there as well?
And some award-winning bridges out in the middle of nowhere.
They were built to move yucca, according to some people, and then when you look at them, you're like, okay, well that's a little bit of overkill. I don't know how many tons of yucca you need to cross over that bridge at that size, but that's oftentimes what happens. It's built up as, hey, this is what this is for, and it's hard to say no to something that's going to benefit
That's
that
what we're
area,
going to
but
be talking about next
we're going to
week.
find out if really
It's
that's what's going on
great,
here.
great, great guest. From
So,
pilots to photographers.
absolutely, and then Ralph Furlong chiming in now, who also is very familiar with that area. One of the things that went on out there and it's still going on. And there's an area that we mentioned a lot in our think tank as well, which is Metati, and they have a big hospital there, which
Yes,
Ralph
we're going
played
to
a
show
big
you
role
guys
in that
part
as
of it.
well, with helping with the construction of that. So very familiar with that. And looking forward to that. And Ralph, you certainly can chime in or join us if you want to, because I know you have a lot of insight on a lot of
Yeah,
those Panama projects.
Darien is the new spot. Well, Willie, we got to get on to Bochinche birthdays before we get on to
Yeah.
David. So,
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get our bochinche going here so we can move right along here, because Dave's got some really fascinating La Boca stuff. So let's kick it off with Ricky's favorite dance music.
El bochinche, 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 el bochinche.
Right. There
All
you
right,
go.
all right, all right. Bochinche time. Oh, listen, let's not go right to geopolitics. Let's do a little reunion because Alex just came out with some information. Look, guys, the Radisson is the where that everything is happening in the January reunion, and right now they separated 150 rooms. There's only 50 left. So jump on it if you guys want to stay at that hotel. But if not, it's all good because Alex is also and his committee. They've secured excellent rates, which will be coming out soon at the Holiday Inn in Clayton and the Marriott in Albrook, which I would say that's the better one because you got the mall right there. I don't know if you've been to that mall, but I've been to that mall, and it's quality and price points you're not gonna find anywhere else for quality. Well, matter of fact, I think this shirt came from Panama. And anyway, so that's what's going on. Get your rooms if you're going to go down there, and if you want to stay at the Radisson, this is the time to do it. The weekend because they're going to be gone. So that's what we got going out of our social bochinche. And of course, Willie and I jumped the gun and we told you about the girls partying. But that's fine because that was a great story. But on the sport part of our bochinche from JC Sports, if you remember, we had him on a couple of weeks ago. There's a Panamanian right now in the big leagues that's just killing it. You know, this guy hit 3 home runs in one day. Ivan Herrera. And Willie, you know that he's the 5th Panamanian that has done that. It's hit 3 home runs in one day. You know, the
amazing.
Other, yeah, that's amazing. The other one being Carlos Lee, who did it 3 times. Ben Obligiv. Ogilvy. He also did it. Adolfo Phillips and Hector Lopez. So these guys, these 5 Panamanians, have all hit 3 home runs in one day. That's pretty Babe Ruth-like. And Willie, not only
and speaking of real quick, speaking of baseball, Rudy Waller, who will be joining us on the 18th in 2 weeks, has been doing some amazing stuff with baseball in El Valle. And speaking of Major League Baseball players and Rudy Waller, they were recently on the Atlantic side with the team doing some baseball stuff there because the league just got started, and they ran into none other than Manny Sanguillen. And they took some pictures with him. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, former Picture Pirate, absolutely. And it was great to see that and see what he's done there, because he's taken his success on the motocross track and he's transitioned into giving something back. And one would think when you give something back in an area that you're known for, recognized for, and obviously for him it's motocross, but let's not kid ourselves. Motocross is not something that everybody can afford to do. It's certainly not every Panamanian can. But
and
baseball is a big sport in Panama, and he's taken this to El Valle, which is a place that doesn't have a lot of money, and he's brought baseball to him. I know Johnny Hearn a year or two ago really helped out and sent him a lot of equipment down there, and we'll learn more about that in a couple of weeks. But kudos to you, Rudy, because you're doing a wonderful job with
he's a good guy.
The youth down there in Panama. Yeah, heart of gold, man.
You know what else he does? He trains, the motorcycle cops in Panama. They're called the linces, like special for. He trains those guys.
Wow,
good for him. Guys that show up with one guy in the back with the AK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He trains those guys as well. So Rudy, right on, Rudy, man.
Good for him.
Well, listen, this guy Ivan Herrera, man, he's like the Rudy of baseball right now, leading the major leagues in batting average. Guess what his batting average is?
Well, I mean, what? 500, 600, 700, what?
600. This guy's bad.
Wow.
600.
And let me tell you what. Let me tell you what.
Christ.
The gold standard in baseball is to hit 300.
Yeah.
Understand that if you hit 300 consistently your career, you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how
and very
difficult
well.
it is to
Very
hit the
well.
ball.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not something. Baseball is owned by pitchers. Okay, so if you can get on base more than six, in this case, 6 out of 10 times he's at bat, he's getting on base. That is an absolutely, it's
A
early in the season,
monster.
of course,
Yeah.
but that's incredible, man. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
He plays for the St. Louis Cardinals, so keep an eye on that Panamanian. There's a
Mhm.
whole bunch out there.
Yeah,
We even have a Zonian playing for the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right, guys. And then on the football front, like we've been telling you, the the Kiwani Football League
Yep.
is their jamboree is this weekend.
yeah. And where's it at?
Yeah, at Balboa Stadium, man. That
Of course.
respected stadium in Panama.
It is. It's not the
Beautiful.
biggest anymore as we've seen, right? Because they've got some incredible stadiums in Panama now, and football down there is huge, and they put a lot of money into it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the Rose Bowl, Yankee Stadium, one of these
Correct.
places where it may not be the newest stadium, but it's the classic. It's the one that you have to pay homage to.
Yes, yes. No, ACP does a good job of maintaining it. I've seen
Yeah,
pictures that they've done pretty good, guys.
sure,
All
sure.
right, all right. So we're going to be moving. Do we have any more social? Wow. Any more? Sorry, guys. Any more social? No, I think that's it. Time for
I think we're
geopolitics.
good. I think, yeah, just
Let's
switch
move
gears real
right
quick
in.
here, because
That
we have
will.
Dave's on standby, so we're gonna try and move it
Yeah,
along. But
yeah. We don't want to lose Dave, but listen, Willie. I finally remember we always talk about the Darien Gap being closed. And I know we always
yeah,
like 98%, 98%. Why is it? How does that 2% get in? Well, we just found out from the president obligation with, I guess, the United Nations or somebody, but every country has to allow a route for people to migrate through. So that's where that 2%. That's why you never get to 100% border, the border
okay.
crossing. Guys, as you know, the ports deal, the Chinese kind of put a stop to it, but the Panamanian president came out yesterday and said, no, that's still going. It's going to get signed eventually, of course. Everybody wants to check things out. And then, Willie, at the end of the day, Panama has to approve it. So these
Well,
guys
and
can.
I've always said that as much as China wants to push back, and let's not kid ourselves, CK Hutchinson, whatever that company is called now, they can claim they're independent, whatever, but they're run by the Chinese, and if they put their foot down, which they're more than capable of doing, I still fully believe that the ace up Panama sleeve is the Supreme Court. Because no
Yeah,
matter what, at the end of the day, if the Supreme Court says that this deal was a bad deal, then they don't have any ownership. They may want to
they
go
got no
after somebody for
leverage.
some money, but that's a civil suit now at this point. But the actual legal right to operate the canal, they no longer have a say in that. And at that point, then it can be sold to whomever, and then you all deal a haggle with the who owes who money now, based on the previous deal. But the legality of owning the rights to operate that, I think the Supreme Court, if push comes to shove, will step in and go, hey, ain't happening this way, brother.
Yeah, so it sounds like the president's pretty sure of
Yeah.
of his when he spoke that this deal is going on. So it looks like it's BlackRock all the way
Oh,
through.
forgot.
Yeah.
Forgot
Now,
to put my
Willie.
Canal hat on.
Yeah, Willie. I know you did a lot of work this week on the railroad. So why don't you just update us on that?
Yeah, and Leaf kind of helped us to kind of segue that a bit here. The Panama, well, we call it the Panama Road, but technically it's the Panama Canal Railway Company, okay, which is the successor of the Panama Road that we knew down there. But it's been
Which was
sold.
the successor of
Uh,
another company. That's right.
Absolutely, and in fact, at one point, as we learned a long time ago from our historian, Canal historian Dave Dahlstrom, was when the French first started building the canal, they bought or took ownership of the railroad, right? And that was essential,
Oh,
obviously, because logistically you needed rail back then. You didn't have off-road vehicles and those kind of things in roads, so you needed a railroad, and so that was part of the deal. So when things changed hands again for the United States to come in and build a canal,
and
part of
they
it
bought it
was
again.
had to buy it
10
back. So
million.
it's been moving around quite a bit. It's not something that's been sitting in
That's
Panama's
been,
hands.
yeah.
It really never has, in all honesty. You
Yeah,
know,
no, right. It's been changing hands left and right. That's awesome. I
it
mean, I
has.
love that
It has.
news. I love that
But but
news.
but nonetheless, so the big news that just broke out of the blue. I mean, I'm sure some people in the know were maybe privy to it, but the vast majority of us, all of a sudden, we see a headline in the middle of the week, just out of the blue, that the Panama Railroad was sold, and it was sold to a conglomerate that one of their main players is Maersk, the shipping line.
Norwegian? Are they Norwegian or
The Maersk
Netherlands?
is Danish.
Danish.
Yeah, they're from Denmark, and they are part of a group that is one of the largest container operators in the world. And so,
So
the
they're one of
Panama
the
Railroad, we look at it, and of course, with the Canal Zone reunion, we saw that people got to take the trip on the railroad back and forth. But
beautiful.
the Panama Railroad is there to move freight. That's what that is for. It is its primary service is moving freight. They move millions of containers, and I'm assuming that this conglomerate, they run some of the largest rail and shipping container operations in the world, and so this is adding to that collection. But if you recall recently, in one of Ricky's Bochinche segments, we learned that lawsuit that was stopping the Corozal port from being built had finally been settled. Which in turn we found out that this is one of those ways that China indirectly did have control of the canal, because the reason that Corozal port could not be built was because the Balboa port that this Chinese company operates was the one that was blocking it, because apparently it was infringing on some of their land or whatever the case was. Nonetheless, the news that now is going to be built is going to obviously add a lot more capacity and the need for more rail capacity. So this company has agreed to not only buy it, but then expand it, and they're going to add more lines to it, and really grow that rail operation to support the canal operation. So one of the friends of the show, and a friend of a lot of us, class of '87, Tommy Morris, was also the CFO of the Panama Canal Railway Company.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so when this news broke, I shot him an email real quick. I said, "Hey, first of all, hope it all is good news for you guys, and hope it's not going to impact you guys. And then let me know your thoughts on it." And so he replied, which was great. And first and foremost, he said, "Yeah, we're not being impacted by it, so everybody gets to keep their jobs. That's awesome. It looks like from everything we've learned, they're doing a fantastic job. So it makes sense to keep that team in
And
there to run it."
they have deep pockets. Now listen to this, Will. At the same time, today, the ACP, the people who run the canal, put out a request for proposal, aka RFP, to provide logistics to move energy resources, aka Panama's going to be building a new pipeline going from north to south, right, and then into the Pacific, and that's
Interesting.
again going to provide more capacity and making all the noise that the Mexicans, Nicaraguans, Colombians, Hondurans are making irrelevant. The money
Yeah, I
is,
mean,
yeah, the place to
we've
put your
learned there's a
money is
lot
in
of
Panama.
alternatives.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
yeah,
nice when you can build off of the current foundation you have there. Makes it a lot easier, certainly a lot more affordable than starting from scratch in all these other places. So, Panama already has an edge on all that stuff, and it's just a way to enhance the offering that is Panama, and why it is the crossroads of the world.
yep.
But
Yeah, so that's what we got going
all right,
on,
you're
and
talking on top
then
of my head. Okay, Leaf.
what we
Leaf is
also
starting to take my head
have
off.
happening this week in Panama. But before we get into that, Willie, there was some talk of troops in Panama, and there's always been troops in Panama. Let me tell you something, Willie.
Yeah,
1741, there was a soldier that went through Panama. 1741, that by the name of Colonel Lawrence Washington, who, by the way,
right.
was the brother of George Washington. So this is
How about that?
before the United States became a country, right? We had soldiers already in Panama. So
Right
having
on. Your U.S. soldiers
yeah,
are already there. They didn't even know it.
having soldiers in Panama recently, I don't know if Willie has the photo or not, freaked out a
Yep.
lot of people. If you can blow that, I don't know if everybody can see that. Freaked out a lot of people in Panama, with all the rhetoric of Trump talking about invasion. And have you noticed every time he says, "I'm invading Panama," first the port deal. I'm invading Panama. the railroad deal.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't say we're invading. Let's be clear on that. He's not saying we're
Well, you know what I
taking
mean. You
back
know what I
the
mean. Yeah,
canal. But
yeah, yeah.
yes, anytime he starts talking, you know,
Something's
boisterous,
happening in the background, right? Yeah.
then something
Yeah.
ends up being given to us.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so the troops have been in Panama recently, but they're participating in what is known as the Panamax 2025. This is a canal protection exercise they do every 2 years since 2002, I
Correct.
believe, or even earlier. So, anyways, people in Panama are freaking out about this.
So these guys were there 2 years ago and nobody cared.
Right. But I guess with the rhetoric, they all started freaking out.
Makes sense. It's newsworthy now.
So of course, the word United States has always been this way with Panama. They got to mellow things
no, they
out.
have.
Right.
For sure.
So they brought down from Louisiana the Marine Corps marching band. These guys are world renowned. Yeah, these guys are world renowned, and they're going to do 3 shows in Panama. Free of charge, by the way, on this Sunday. At Casco Viejo in la Plaza Catedral. Listen to that Spanish accent, man.
This guy, it's a far cry from the guy that was talking about Capira back a year ago, right?
This is the amount of troll I got in for that. Well, anyways, guys, Sunday 5 to 7 at Plaza Catedral. And then take a break on Monday. I wouldn't be surprised if they show up at the football game. I bet you they'll be at the football game. Anyways,
well, and another. Speaking of events in the Ciudad de Saber, formerly Fort Clayton, Ruben Blades is playing on tomorrow. As a matter of fact, so if you're down there in Panama, you want to and it's a free concert, by the way. So if you want to go catch Ruben Blades playing in a free concert, go down to Fort Clayton tomorrow and check them out. I'm not sure the time, but I'm sure you can find it down there in Panama.
Yeah. Well, on Tuesday, they'll be in Colón from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. playing there. And then on Thursday, they come back to Panama and they'll be playing in Villa Argentina, that real beautiful park there. I forget the last name of the park.
Very cool.
But anyway, so on Thursday, 4:10 from 6 to 7 p.m. they'll be playing there. So yeah, if you want to catch the Marine Corps marching band, they're really, really
so
good.
They're not invading you with tubas and trombones and trumpets. Okay, it's not an invasion force.
Yes. The cultural propaganda war is on.
Although back in the day, that's how you fought wars. Before the days of radios, you used drums. Especially was the way that people didn't realize that those horns and drums that they played was marching orders. They were each one of those was the cadence. It wasn't just a random tune or music they were playing. If you played a certain tune, that meant flank or run or stop or whatever it was. That's how they communicated.
It was an order. I said with flags.
Flags as well, but a lot of times I'm not looking back at a flag when they got people in front of me shooting at me and attacking me, but I can hear stuff and that'll tell me to move.
I watched too much William Wallace. I think I've seen
yes, right on.
Times,
That's a great flick, man.
Great flick. Well, guys, what else going on in Panama? I tell you, it's the tariffs. Panama got hit with 10% tariffs. So you got 2 ways to look at it. You can get upset about it and say, "Oh, why that?" Or like our mayor in Panama and a few other people are saying, "Listen, we are at the lower tier, right? So all the countries that are manufacturing on the higher tier, guess where they're going to invest, or at least put their distribution centers to get the better deal in Panama." So this is who people there are negotiating to bring to Panama. Amazon, Temu, AliExpress, TikTok, all coming to Panama because that's where the low tariffs are. So, I mean, like I said,
for those guys that don't know, when he says TikTok, TikTok has become a big shopping venue as well now. They're really evolving what they offer, and so it's not TikTok like they're going to show up there and have a server there. Right, it's right.
Of course, a server influencer.
And you think about the infrastructure that's already there, right? This whole reason that this Panama Canal arguments come up with Trump is the fact that, like they say, 70% of the traffic that goes through that canal is going to or from the United States. So it makes sense that if you're going to try and find a place outside of your country, if you're being hit hard by tariffs, where you could save some money, because I'm sure between China and Panama, there's no tariffs. I'm sure that was built into all these port deals and crap they have, so they could just flood that place with stuff and then send it to the United States at a 10% tariff as opposed to the 65 or whatever amount China's
Yeah,
getting.
whatever
So
the other people.
brilliant move, man.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, you can look at it two ways. You can be upset about it, or you can benefit and jump on it. And which Panama's, they're
Sure.
jumping on it. They're definitely
Yeah.
jumping on it. Well, guys, that is it. If we can get a where's our drum roll?
Oh, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Oh, it's amazing what happens when he buys himself when he doesn't use a Timu computer anymore.
Birthdays. Oh, we got a break. We got
Yeah,
a break.
let's roll right into those birthdays because we got Dave on standby here, and
Yeah, we got
again,
Dave
we
on
wanted to run
standby.
through it quick.
Yeah.
And as usual, we try our best, but it's
Yes. Listen, guys. Early in the show, we celebrated somebody who had passed. Well, I want to celebrate a couple of my friends that also passed, and their birthdays are this week. Craig Taltubal from class of '81, and my very good friend Mark Conover from class of '78. Marco. All right. Well, anyways, guys, sorry for all this, but hey, we got to celebrate the people, life and death. We celebrate you guys. All right, for the class of '81, man, we've got some great people. Eric Newton, again, he also passed. Jesus Christ, I guess we're getting older, so sorry. Eric up there, Rigoberto Meneses, happy birthday to you. Cheryl Lebro, another French. We have so many French in the Canal Zone. She was actually out of Boston. Happy birthday to her. Federico Solis, Panamanian that played with us in the Canal Zone. Good baseball player, as well as Joanne McNary out of Japan. Happy birthday to you, class of '81s. And I forget one of my very good friends, Bill White. His birthday is actually in 4 days, but I want to make sure I catch him before that. Happy birthday, Mr. Bill White out of Los Rios. So moving on, guys. These are all everybody who celebrated between the 2nd and the 7th of April. Linda Mirop, class of '80, good friend of my sister Lourdes. The twins, Cliff and John Frank. Yep. Mark Fielding Darvin, happy birthday, Mark. The beautiful April Marie Gavin. Rebecca Wetstein. Did I say that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's about right.
Diana Huff Grimison. Happy birthday, Diana. Hernan Arauz. Happy birthday.
Hernan. I apologize that I called him Norman Arauz, which is a Zonian friend of ours. I believe it's class of '85. But Hernan Arauz is a cartographer. And again, he's got an amazing YouTube video. It's about 45, 50 minutes long on the history of Panama and in particular Darien maps that he did as a talk in front of the Library of Congress. It's really, really fascinating. If you like that kind of history, tune into it. It's Hernan Arauz. It's a really, really, really cool video to watch. I ended up reaching out to him because I needed help to find a map for that excavation project that I'm working on. And he gave me a number to call, and it worked, man. They answered the phone, they talked to me, and got the map to me. So happy birthday to you, man.
Yeah, right on. Now, the very remembered and the beautiful Jessica Brassfield, class of '84, from Cristobal High School, who was on with us not too long ago. Gerald Corrigan.
Yes,
Gerald.
I think he's back down in Panama too. I saw him the other day with both of the Joseph brothers and a couple of. I think they had some kind of a white party or something because everybody was dressed in white in that picture. But happy birthday to you, man. Happy
birthday, Gerald. Dr. Eileen Bradley. Her dad's on with us tonight. Happy birthday, Eileen. The class president of your class, Buddy Sims. Happy birthday, Mr. Sims.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Yes, Ricardo Jardín out of Cristobal High School, I believe.
Yep, Jardín. Yep.
Jardín, yes. Richard Nolan. Happy birthday, Richard. And of course, not last but not least, there's still one more special one coming up. Juan Barros, happy birthday to you and to my
Juan Barros,
brother.
Well, Juan Barros, Juan Barros, his dad was the principal at Balboa High School.
At Balboa High School.
Yeah. Yes. Really, really, really great guy. That great family.
Yeah, Juan Barros, happy birthday. Last but not least, truly the definition of a brother from another mother. And I mean it because our parents grew up together, family planned together, neighbors, went into the police force together.
Yeah, they
His
did.
mom even dated Aristides when they were like in junior high school. That kind of family. And that is my brother, Frank Pineda. Happy birthday to you, Frank.
Yes,
We've
happy
been
birthday,
together
Frank.
since we were born. I mean,
And
we
Frank
shared
Pereira was at
together
SCN too.
at a SCN. That's right, Frank. Happy birthday, Francisco.
Yes, happy birthday, Francisco. So that's awesome, and absolutely, you're very welcome on the birthday wish. CZ Digger's one of the Frank brothers. Cliff, I believe it's John or Cliff. I believe it's John Frank. But yeah, happy birthday to you guys. And then one more other very special birthday on Monday, the 7th of April. Can't miss this one. This is the person that thank God they decided to join the Air Force. And in the Air Force, they got stationed in Panama. Fortunately, luck of the draw, and then they met the beautiful Dallas Perez, and they got married, and they had Scott, myself, and Sherry. And so, a great Zonian dad. Happy birthday to you on Monday. Enjoy the celebration. If you're on the show, great. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. We're having a little birthday celebration for Dad. But happy birthday to you, Dad. So anyhow, but that's our birthdays. If we miss anybody else, again, we do apologize. But happy birthday to all Zonians here and upstairs, and we wish you all the best with our Muda song provided to us by our guests is getting ready to join us here shortly. Our Canal's historian Dave Dahlstrom. But here's our happy birthday Muda song. Enjoy, guys. You know, there's something about a kazoo that always is it makes for a great humbling sound, right? Because it is rather pathetic. And that was our birthday tune. Originally was a kazoo, and you know, and I'm kind of I'm not I'm resistant to change. Let's put it that way. But when Dave said, "Hey, you should use this song," and I hit play, I was like, "Of course, man! Hell yeah, that was a no brainer there." And normally I would say no, but come on, man! Muda playing Happy Birthday. That was a winner for sure. So. But yeah, so Dave, get ready to join us. He's queued up here. We're going to take a really quick break and we'll be back and learn some La Boca history, guys. Get ready. We all think we know La Boca, but there was a La Boca that was quite different back in the day. So we're going to learn about that, as Ricky said, that silver La Boca. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Go ahead again to refill your drinks and hit the restroom, and then we'll be back some fascinating Canals on history from our historian, Dave Dahlstrom. Stay tuned.
Deep within the jungles of Central America lies the Isthmus of Panama, a narrow strip of land connecting North and South America as well as dividing the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. It is here, in Panama, that explorers dared to imagine the impossible, a path to join the world. King Charles of Spain commissioned a research expedition to survey a canal in the isthmus in 1567. He was searching for a way to shorten months of perilous sea travel around Cape Horn in South America. In the middle of the 1800s, Great Britain also surveyed the isthmus for a canal route and a shortcut to Asia. Finally, in 1881, the French diplomat and Suez Canal builder Ferdinand de Lesseps tried to replicate his efforts in Panama. But unlike the flat and soft sand in Egypt, the stifling jungles, rocky terrain and disease in Panama proved to be a much different and more challenging landscape. This challenge proved to be too much and resulted in failure. As the new century began, the United States took up the challenge of cutting through the continental divide. America was fast becoming a global power. Her new industrial might and ingenuity were about to be showcased to the world. Excavating the impossible, the building of the Panama Canal, is the story of dreams brought forth from failure, of innovative leaders and men who toiled and sacrificed to see two oceans united. It's a story of technology, of courage, and of unbreakable human spirit. This 5-part series will be the most comprehensive and detailed account of the building of the Panama Canal. We'll begin with a journey back 4 centuries to the Spanish Empire and their colonial aspirations, followed by British attempts in the 19th century, and finally culminating with the failed French attempt at the end of the 1800s. Part 2, we'll enter a new century and see the emergence of America and Teddy Roosevelt, with a bold and ambitious plan for a canal where others said it couldn't be done. We'll learn about the early plans, the logistics, the companies and people involved. In Part 3, we'll learn about early hurdles, poor decisions and setbacks that almost doomed the American endeavor. And we'll see how America changed direction and overcame the early stumbling blocks and turned failure into progress. Part 4 will cover the incredible project of surveying, excavating, damming and building of the world's most important waterway, all while engaged in a relentless fight against disease, weather and terrain. Finally, Part 5 reveals the steps in completing this strategic waterway and the first ships that crossed a fully operational Panama Canal, changing global trade forever. This is the most complete and researched authoring of the construction of the 8th wonder of the world. This is a comprehensive story behind one of the greatest engineering marvels in human history, excavating the impossible, the building of the Panama Canal.
All right, there you go, guys. That's exciting. Still a work in progress, of course, but in the meantime, let's learn about some more history with our Canal Zone historian. It is the beginning of the month, so Dave, happy Friday, to you, man. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Of course, we're looking forward to it. Everybody looks forward to it. We always get
To
so
it,
much
yes.
feedback about, hey, when's Dave coming on? So every month, first of the month, we have Dave on. So everybody prepare, get your notebooks out, pen and paper, take some notes. And I'm not kidding about taking notes, guys, because there will be some of these, our Kahoot questions will involve some canals on history. So pay attention, guys. So anyway, Dave, what's going on, man?
All right. Well, tonight we're gonna learn about Silver La Boca and also the Panama Tram. And these are two things that I knew nothing about. So this is kind of a recent learn for me. So it was fun doing the research. So I'm going to share it with you, and hopefully you guys can learn some things about Canal Zone that you didn't ever know before.
Absolutely.
So I'm really
Let's
excited
kick it off
about
then and
this.
find out what you got going on, man. Heck yeah.
So
Absolutely.
again, I'm going to have another famous Zonian section. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I got too many slides for that. And then I got a Where Am I? And then we'll get into the history of La Boca, and it's Silver La Boca. And then the Panama Tram. And I'm going to kind of weave those two together, but primarily talk about La Boca first and then follow up with Panama Tram. All right, so let's go to famous Zonians. And so question, please. I don't know if you want me to read this or you guys want to read it.
All right. So, which Zonian auditioned for the TV band The Monkees? Remember that on SCN Canals, and that was a great show to watch. Was a roommate with Peter Tork. And throw in the chat if you can remember which one was Peter Tork. What was Peter Tork? What did he look like, or something? Describe who he was as part of the Monkees. Ranked number 28 and number 47 world class guitar players, right on by Rolling Stone magazine. So
really,
very
what I mean by
interesting.
that is that in 2003 he was ranked number 28, and then in 2011 when they did it again, he dropped to 47. I guess like Slash and other guys that even Halen maybe came in and took a spot, but
Sure. But just the fact that he's ranked there is in itself pretty impressive. Finished high school in Gainesville, Florida, where he met future Eagles guitarist Don Felderand and formed the band The Continentals. Interesting. So I know some people are furiously Googling it right now, or Chat GPT or something to figure this out. But had a jam sessions with Jimi Hendrix. Right on, man. This is Ricky. What are your thoughts, man? What are
I
you
was
thinking
thinking
here?
that guy from Viva that we're going to have on pretty soon. What's his name? Christensen?
Oh, Slater.
Slater. No.
Yeah, our class of '76 VHS. Well, let's find out here. Oh, hold on a little bit more. Was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997, twice, not once, but twice,
On the same
and
night.
played guitar on the same night. Right on. Look at that. You go up on the stage, go sit back down. You got to go back up again. Now you got to come up with another thank you message, right?
So
On albums on two other inductees that year. Man, that's impressive, man. That's a
Actually, I got
famous
that
Zonian
wrong.
here.
He played guitar on one album and he played percussion on another.
Okay, well, way to go, Dave. Come on now. Get your
yeah, it'd
stuff
be for
right here,
Balboa.
man. Come on, man.
All right.
All right. Was a member of these bands. Buffalo Springfield, certainly we know that band. That second one we definitely know, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and wrote a song called Panama, released August 16th of 1994.
He was a day late. He should have released it on August 15th.
Yes, that's a
See,
big day in the
All
track.
right. Okay. Drum
see, had
roll.
he been
And
watching
guess who's
Dave
the name in the
Dahlstrom,
chat,
that Canal
guys?
Zone. Let's see. Anybody think they got it
Yeah,
here? Let's
someone
see
in the
what's in
chat,
the.
guys. All right. Good job.
They did get it. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
they
see
got
here.
it.
So let's see our. There you go, Ricky. Look at you, man. Look at you. Okay, and of course, Steven Stills, right on.
All right, so he's the Stills and Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Right there, you go.
And
Wow, how about that?
Hey,
he was in his teens when he lived in the Canal Zone. His parents were in the military.
Mm-hmm.
I tried looking for like a high school photo of him. I couldn't find one, but he sang in there with I can't think of Crosby's first name, and Graham Nash, and then go to the next one.
David, yeah.
David Crosby, yeah. And then in 1994, they released this album called The Storm or something like that. And go to the next one. And if you read the number 12 track on there, Willie.
Number 12 is Panama. Absolutely, at the bottom there.
So you can find it on YouTube or any of these places. And he
We're
talks about
gonna have to.
his childhood in the Panama, and he has a life event during that time. So I'll just leave it at that. And
Heck yeah,
so go on to the
that's
next
pretty
one.
cool, man. All right, and real quick, just throw up some comments from the audience, real quick. And on our previous question, Peter Tork had the goofy hat. Yes, he had the goofy hat on the
he didn't.
monkeys.
That was
Oh, he didn't.
no.
All right, here we go.
Well, the interesting thing
Correction.
with
and Leaf says he thinks he had the bowl cut.
yeah, well, yeah, he had the bowl cut, but he auditioned for it, with like 400 other people, and they liked his musicianship, but he didn't quite have the Hollywood look,
Star power.
guess. So he said, "Hey, how about my friend Peter?"
Oh wow, right on.
Yeah. So then
that's one way to get there.
they moved in with each other at some point, and then sometime in the future, then Stephen Stills. Well, I'll get to it later.
Right on.
But go to the next one. This is from the from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. You can see him. He's in the bottom left. There's two gentlemen there. David Crosby's on the right. So that was one of their inductions, and then go to the next one.
Buffalo Springfield.
Buffalo Springfield.
Same night. That's amazing.
Inducted. He's the second on the left.
Sure.
And then the guy standing next to him is Tom Petty. Tom
Yep,
Petty
sure
is the one that they have someone that introduces him. So go on the next one. And so here's the induction, and so Tom Petty is the one that does the introduction, and you can see Stephen Stills' name is there because he played in Buffalo Springfield at the time. But the interesting thing about Tom Petty is that he also went to Gainesville High School, just like a year after Don Felder and Stephen Stills, and so they all knew each other from high school.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's a
There's a
pretty rocking high
little
school
cluster of
band.
musicians there.
They have those three guys there. So go to the next
Yeah,
one, and this is James Taylor inducted the Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and you can see Stephen Stills' names there too.
sure.
And then go to the next one. This is him, one of his jam sessions with Jimi
Jimi
Hendrix,
Hendrix.
and
That's
Jimi
amazing.
Hendrix and Eric Clapton actually played guitar on one of Stephen Stills' single albums,
Right on.
so they were pretty close.
Right
All
on.
right, let's go to the next.
And Jim Bradley saying, Dave, say hello to your mother, Linda, for me, and hope
All
she
right,
will be at the reunion in July. Right on.
so so here's a couple of other tidbits. Stephen Stills was a session guitarist as well, and he played guitar on "Ain't No Sunshine," so you've probably heard that Bill Withers song many,
Yeah.
many times. He
Which,
also
by the
played
way,
on
that
"Don't Come Easy"
that
by Ringo Starr, and he actually
you know
bought
that
Ringo
that
Starr's
Bill Withers
house.
song, that "Ain't No Sunshine." There's a funny version of it on YouTube, and when he does and I know, someone puts it on, and honest to God, it's an hour long, and I didn't realize that one time I put the song on. I was just going through music, doing something, and he started doing it. And next, thing you know, about a minute and a half went by, and all of a sudden I'm like, "What the hell is this?" And I look, and so it was really well done because it sounds very natural, but it, honest to God, goes on for like 45 minutes of that one piece. It's pretty funny. You look it up,
Right.
it's quite
So he,
quite entertaining.
yeah, so he played on Ringo Starr song "Don't Come Easy," and then he bought Ringo's house, and
Wow, right on.
then you've probably heard that song "Love the One You're With." That's one of the songs from
Yeah,
Stephen Stills' single album, but I think he also played it with
that was
Crosby,
his own
Stills, and
song, man.
Nash. And then on the song "Teach Your Children," they had Jerry Garcia. They were the Grateful Dead were recording next door, so they invited him in to play on that. So he's played with some really legends in
Yeah,
rock,
man,
and he played guitar
for
with
sure.
Eric Clapton in his "Let It Rain" song, and he played percussion in "You Should Be Dancing" by the Bee Gees.
That's cool. Right
And
on.
all of these songs are just like songs I remember hearing on SCN and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
recognizable songs.
And it's like, freaking, there's a Zonian there.
That is
And
so cool.
so some of the other, the Bee Gees were inducted in the Hall of Fame that same night. And so he was actually playing, drums on one of the songs on the album. And then Joni Mitchell was too, and he played on her album Blue. Um, I'm not a big Joni Mitchell fan,
But still,
but
she's
you know her
recognized.
stuff. You hear it all the time. But
Yeah,
the other
certainly.
interesting thing is that there was this event in California. It's called Altamont Spring Speedway, and it was a big music festival. And the Rolling Stones were highlighting it, but Crosby, Stills, and Nash went there to play. And this is the concert where they hired Hell's Angels to be the bouncers.
Nice.
And they got in a big fight, and some couple of people were
Of
killed. But the
course.
story is that Crosby, Stills, and Nash, they were so terrified by that they actually left after 4 songs and weren't there for all the melee. But it's just kind
I
of
love
fun.
it. That's
So
cool. I love this part of the whole Canals One history because it's really cool to it's always somebody that we can relate to that we've seen on TV or in a movie or
right,
listen to their music and we never make that connection. So it's always cool.
right,
It's another one of those proud zoning moments to hear that. So I
so
love
he
when you share
wasn't a
that stuff.
Zonian very long, but still,
Hey,
but
listen, some of our greatest zonians were there short term.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Well, I mean,
you know
but that's part of it too, and it's what I keep on saying. There's always these people that come through, and they have their memory and their pictures, and of course they take them back to the States with them, and we never see them again, right? So
right,
I'd
right.
love to hear their stories about what they experienced when they were there.
Yeah, well, we hopefully they'll
Um,
have James Slater on, and he's certainly been around some big huge country music stars, and written some amazing songs that you've heard and
mhm,
didn't realize that they were
right.
from a Balboa High School graduate. So that'd be
Yeah.
cool to hear his story as well.
Yeah. All right. So the next one is a "Where Am I?"
All right, here
And
we
I
go.
I,
Where am I?
I saw this picture on Facebook, and I hadn't seen this. I've been looking for something of this for a while, and it's
Okay.
pretty rare.
All right, so in the chat there, I know that we've got a bit of an 8 second delay, but this is a Where Am I? Obviously, home of the Balboa Bulldogs. We can narrow it down a bit. It's certainly not in Cristobal. But where exactly are we looking at here? Let's see if anybody can remember or recognize this and throw it into the chat there. Where is this sign or this? I guess you can call it a sign, a monument, whatever you want to call it. So class of 96, so I guess we can call it a monument, actually. Okay. Well, one guess is San Diego. Are we thinking San Diego? Are we thinking? I mean, look at the foliage. The foliage. I almost those long leaves on that plant up there almost looks like a mango, a baby mango tree. Handled in a mango trees had
Yeah.
those long, long
But do you
leaves on them.
recognize
But
those white bars in the back?
I sure do. I sure do. That is that the walkway going from the main building to like the 600 building?
Yeah.
It
Or
is.
or the main building to like where the ROTC building is, I think. But this is
Ah,
this is
okay.
this is out um, side of Balboa High School on the road that was between the high school and Balboa Elementary School. It was called Gorgona Road, and basically it
Okay.
was just that little arch of a road from the Prado to like where the train station was. That little stretch.
Yes.
It turned from
That
Car
curving
Street
road
to
there.
Gorgona,
I
and
bet most people didn't realize that it was called Gorgona.
Yeah, it
yeah.
went in front of the fire station, right? That same one.
Yes.
This would be if you were standing here and you look to your right a little bit, you'd see the fire station. And then there was
Ah,
the
okay.
entrance that went between the school and the gym. So this would be
Mm-hmm.
kind of on the corner where that road was going into there.
Where the buses turn in.
Yeah, where the buses would go. But every time as
Interesting.
a kid when we're like driving in the car by there, we'd go by this sign, and then I think around 1979 they removed it. Do you
Oh,
know where it
interesting.
ended up?
I would
I'm going
say
to take a
it's
wild guess based on what Chris Jeffries is saying in San Diego.
And well, it might be there now. But when Willie, we played baseball together on Red Machine.
Mm-hmm.
So there was the parking lot
Yes.
um, um, in the back of the stadium off along like Roosevelt
By the shoe store.
by the shoe
Across from
store.
the
There
shoe
was a little
store.
parking lot back
Yes.
there. So
Yeah.
the chain link fence was a little bit closer to the track because
Right.
the parking lot came in, and then when the parking lot ended, the chain link fence went back to the road, and so it was a little bit deeper area back there. And they used to keep like old football equipment back there,
Sure.
but right along where that fence started to go back, they had hauled this thing, and it was laying back there for years.
Wow.
So I always thought that I was
Like
always
behind the
disappointed
goalposts
to
and
see
stuff.
that it was just kind of like thrown away back there.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Interesting. I wonder what happened to it.
Yeah, I don't
Huh.
know if I don't know why they moved it, but it got moved. But
It
someone
sure
posted
did.
this picture not too long ago on Facebook, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't ever see these. You never see that sign.
Right. Right.
So, all right,
Interesting.
okay. Well, the
Right.
next one I showed last time, but I thought since we're talking about Silver LaBoca, I'd bring this back.
Sure.
And do you
Sure.
remember where it was?
That was the road leading. That was La Boca Road, wasn't it?
Well, this is actually by Lakeview. This is Red Tank.
Right, but I mean that the building ended up on what would now be La Boca Road.
No,
Okay.
this would be past Fort Clayton, past the water treatment plant.
Right, but didn't they move all those buildings to La Boca
Oh,
eventually?
yeah. I don't know if they moved this building.
Oh, okay.
They
Okay, I
probably
thought
just
they
knocked it
did.
down. It was 48 um, units in that building.
Yeah.
So, but it was Red Tank, and we're going to be talking about Silver Towns, and it comes up later, so I just left it in there.
Sure. So let me ask you: is this a good time to pause for a moment and explain the whole gold and silver role so that everybody understands? There are some connotations there, but they're not directly what those
Yeah.
roles are attributed to. They just ended up being that way. But explain to us so that everybody understands what gold and silver role really was.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about it as we get into it. But when 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 the French had the canal, everything was paid in silver. That was the monetary um, system that they had. Colombia had the peso, which was silver based, and British had the sterling, silver sterling, and I guess the French did too. So everyone got paid in silver or peso.
Right. Which
Um,
again was silverback.
right. So, but when the U.S. came down, and they were going to pay their U.S. workers, they had to pay their U.S. workers in gold because U.S. was on the gold standard, and there was
Correct.
no way they were going to get Americans to go down to Panama to work for silver. They wanted to be
Right.
paid in gold. In fact, they had to pay them a little
Sure.
bit higher salary to get people to go down to Panama. So, the salaries were a little bit inflated for that purpose, and then they were paid in gold. But Panama was, just coming off independence from Colombia, was on the peso, and so the U.S. had to work out an agreement. Um, so when they were paying the workers, they had to pay them in silver, and the U.S. had to work out an agreement that said, okay, we will pay you in silver, and the silver that we will pay you in will be 0.98.2% pure, at least.
Right.
They have some grading of it, um, and we're going to need like 2 tons of it every month, and so we're going to use Chase Bank is going to bring the gold and silver down so we can pay all the workers and such. And so that's how the gold was originally established, was to pay American workers in gold and non-American workers in silver. And if you look at the hiring practices, the it was based on skilled positions, which were like the steam operators and the locomotive
Of course.
operators, and unskilled. And basically, it fell between, well, the Americans were largely the skilled, so there's gold, and the unskilled were silver. And it followed along racial lines as well. And of course, the U.S. had the Jim Crow laws where they had colored and whites, and that it seemed to follow that as well. So there was a lot of similarities to that. But um, um, the original start of gold and silver was just the two different pay systems.
Correct.
But
And,
again,
and being that the majority of the non-U.S. workers were from the West Indies and
yeah,
were
right,
therefore blacks,
right,
it took the assumption of the connotation that it was strictly based on racial lines, and the truth it wasn't. People from Spain and from these other countries were
right,
also paid in silver, simply because they were non-American.
right, exactly. But there were like some of the Spanish, if you read some of it, because they were recruited, the U.S. would recruit, and they were looking for like stonemasons, people that had certain
Right.
skills that could do this stuff. But not everyone's a stonemason.
Of course.
Um, and so they would get like Spaniards, or they would get other nationalities that were skilled in that, and some of them were led to believe that they would be paid in gold and they would have housing and all that other stuff. And then when they get to Panama, hey, wait a minute, why are we being paid in silver, and how come we don't have a house? um,
Right.
and it's like, too
And not
bad,
all the complaining you can do
yeah.
about it because
Yeah,
you're stuck there
so
now.
so there are issues where you look and you can see where some of the nationalities, when they came here, they felt that they were um, misled,
Discriminated.
and then there were just a couple of U.S. blacks that worked during that time, and they were paid in gold, but they would also get mistreated because everyone would just assume that they were West Indian silver workers. And then when the guy showed up in the gold grocery store, they said, "What are you doing here?" Or "You can't sit here." That type of stuff, which was goes back to the U.S. racial stuff. So you can't
Right.
really you can separate them, but you can't. I mean, they are separate,
Correct.
but
Correct.
there's a lot of
The intent wasn't that, but it still impacted and it still played a major
right.
role in it.
So what we'll learn in this, and I have some writings, and it's going to be hard to see, but I'll read them to you. But one of the things that you'll see is that when the U.S. finished the canal, and originally when they started, it was going to be a sea level canal, but then they had to change it to a lock canal, and they didn't realize how much manpower it would take to actually maintain that canal.
Right.
So they had to like hire people back. A lot of them ended up being West Indians, but I don't think they had the housing and stuff ready for them because they didn't know they needed them. But
Sure.
so when they created these communities, they basically were um, for the West Indians, and so they were all put in separate communities, probably by design.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone disputes that, but they have some unique stories and unique things. They worked for the U.S., but they're British citizens, and if but if they had kids and their kids were born in Panama, um, they were Panamanian. They weren't allowed to, even though they lived in the U.S. territory. They weren't Americans,
Right.
and they weren't Panamanian really because they didn't speak Spanish.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting to read some of this stuff. Um,
Yep.
so the last show we did a segment on the Thatcher Ferry,
Right.
and one of the images, go to the next one, and one of the images on there in this ferry, um, it's approaching the La Boca side, and you can see this building up on the land, and that's about where the bridge support comes and falls right in the field at Panama Canal College.
Right.
And and that's kind of when I got really fascinated about this. It was like, what the heck is that building?
The one with the red roof.
Well, what was there? And then you can see a building to the left, and it really resembles kind of like the old Canal Zone College building.
It sure
Like,
does. I was going to say, if you didn't know better, you'd say that's the Canal College building.
right. So that got me interested. I had seen some maps and some photos of old Silver La Boca, but I hadn't really studied it. So I've spent some time looking at it, and so we're going to go and just take a little tour and learn a little history.
All right.
Right.
Let's
So
go ahead and get
go on to
on
the next
board
one.
then.
So
And
this
there
next one is
you go.
a view from Sosa Hill, and you can see where La Boca is. You can see the dock that goes out from the yacht club. Where
Mhm.
everyone
You can see that ferry that we were just looking at from a different
you
angle.
can see
It's
the
on
the
that straight
ferry
line there.
on the right side, and it's the town basically where the La Boca that we know is.
Hmm.
But this was started in 1913, 1914. I'm just like Balboa and all those other
A lot of
places,
different housing than what we're used to seeing in La Boca.
right? Completely different. Um,
Yeah, it certainly is.
so go on to the next one, and we've talked about in the past too that the first La Boca, and the reason it's called La Boca is because the Rio Grande River ran through here, and it was the mouth of the river, so La Boca. Um, and the French, they had a community that they built basically where the quarry is off of Sosa Hill,
Yes.
and so you can see where the dry dock is in the image, and then right off where the dry dock is where the buildings used to be, and all the other stuff there, like you were saying earlier, it was all filled in or it was swamp. And if you look at
Correct.
pictures of Albrook and stuff, it's all swamp. There's mangroves everywhere except on that hill. So people had to build on the high ground, and that
Well,
was
then you
one of
can
the
see
few
the label on
areas.
the map there. It says La Boca Dump on that track
Yeah,
that's skirting along the coastline there, which
right,
again is indicating that was all part of that fill in there.
right. And the dump track, if you followed that, that would be Barnaby Street, in the Balboa side.
Right,
So
right, right.
up where it
As
says
you get to
swamp.
the
Yeah. then
Yeah.
that would
Okay.
be Amador Road going
Yeah, certainly.
out there.
Yeah, the bay wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah. So then
Interesting.
you can see some images of some of those French style houses built on the hill. But that
Sure.
was actually that's probably the second La Boca, because the French got there in 1880 and they called it La Boca before then, and it was probably
Sure.
just some fishing shacks type of thing.
Right. Right.
All right.
But it was the mouth of the river.
Right. All right. So here's a street map of Silver La Boca,
Yeah.
and one of the interesting things, if you look in the center of that image, I put a light green stripe that goes through there, and
Yeah.
it's called Jamaica Prado. So they had their own Prado.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if it's the same size as the one in Balboa. I'll need to
Right.
get a scale out and scale it. It looks like it could be.
Could be, yes.
Sure.
Looks it.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I have a couple of things that are circled. The one on the right, the red, is that first building that we saw with the ferry.
The one with the red roof.
Right.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I believe the green one might be the other building, or it could be some of these other buildings here. But we'll get into some more details. But I think the green one is the approximate location of where the Canal Zone College building is.
I believe so. Yes.
And
Yeah. That makes sense
it
because
might be the same building,
probably
or
because that was an
there
older
was one
wooden
that was
building.
rebuilt. I'll have to do some research to find out what the history of that building is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blue building, if you're familiar with La Boca, there was the printing plant on the corner
Yep.
there.
That
So
was it.
that's the building in the blue, and it originally was the commissary.
Yes.
So it was a silver commissary. And that's all
Correct.
I had ever really heard when I was a kid, is that it used to be a commissary. I don't think I don't remember it being called the silver commissary, but it was just a commissary, and that
Sure.
it didn't ever look like one to me, so it just kind of didn't make
No.
sense.
No. And I had gone in there a couple times with my dad. And yeah, you certainly couldn't see
Right.
anything that would tell you, hey, this used to be a
Right.
commissary.
And then there, just north of that, the blue circle, you can see two buildings, and one of them, basically, they're churches,
Mm-hmm.
and those churches are still there.
Yep.
That's right. That's
So
right.
basically, the commissary and those churches are the only remaining things,
The bygone
besides La
era.
Boca Road and some of the names. Like, I lived in La Boca. How many people lived in La Boca? I
Yeah.
lived on
Right.
Tobago Street, and they had West Indian names on a lot of the
Oh, that's probably
streets.
where they originated from because that was
Right.
Silver La Boca.
Right.
Huh. Interesting.
Could be.
Very interesting.
All right. So let's go to the next one. Another street map. We talked about the next one, Will.
Yeah, no, I was just
Okay.
reading something in the chat there that Jim Bradley put in there. Says that picture is of the corrosion test pier. Interesting.
One by the Yacht Club.
Interesting.
So it was what must
Okay.
have been
Okay.
first.
All right.
All right. So this is those churches you're talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah, the blue ones are the churches, and then the red we'll talk about later. But there's a dispensary, a clubhouse, and a theater, and those are in the red
Wow.
areas. So at the end of the
Interesting.
Prado, kind of like in Balboa, you get to the end of the Prado, you had a
Yeah.
clubhouse, you had a theater, and you had
The pool.
the pool. They
Sure.
didn't have
That
a
was
pool,
like
but
the town center, and I guess a main street in a
right,
sense.
right. So just some
Okay.
things to point out there, and then
Yeah.
the next one, again, you can see Jamaica Prado. This one has the houses on it, so that one
And
image
this
that we
one's
saw
flipped.
with all the
So you guys
houses,
looking at the other direction.
yeah, it's like the other direction. The green circle is the commissary. The
Yeah.
red circle is the dispensary and the theater and the clubhouse. And then the blue one is La Boca School. So that was a school building.
There you go.
And so it was, it was its own little town. And
It certainly was.
And so let's go on to the next one. So someone was saying that's where the library was. So the
Right.
Boca School, it shows up on the bottom. These are all different angles now. But I think someone mentioned about where the library is, and I think occupational school might be where the library is. Definitely where the parking lot was.
Okay, and where the Boca School would be probably that field behind it
Or
where the
the
Bohio
field,
was.
right, where the pier, the bridge pier comes down
Yeah. Okay.
along.
Okay. Interesting.
And then you can see they had a basketball court there, right
Yeah.
next to that. So let's go on to the next one. In this one, these buildings that are labeled 57, 8, 9, and 60.
Yeah.
The bottom street is called Bakery, and
Okay.
then the one 960A, the one kind of like to the right,
Yep.
is
Right on the edge of the
Theater,
Prado.
and then the one with the camera on it says Clubhouse.
Ah. Okay.
Right, so that's it, and then you can see the schools are right there. So that was like a little civic area.
Yeah.
So can you imagine you go to school and maybe you go to the clubhouse and get empanadas there?
Yeah. Right.
But they probably called them beef patties, right?
Yeah. Meat pies.
Jamaicans
Right.
call them beef patties.
Okay. Yeah. They weren't empanadas. That
Right. So
was quite Panamanian.
then they also had the vocational school on the next one,
Okay.
which looks about where the gym is at the
I was gonna
college.
say, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yep.
somewhere in there. So maybe it's not the same building, but
Similar location. Probably had the same
somewhere in that
footprint.
location, right?
Yeah.
And then of course that road to the right, to the right of the vocational school is the one that takes you into the tank farm. I don't know if you remember,
Right.
kind of like linked off.
Sure.
And then go to the next one. The next one you can see it says commissary,
Yep.
in the Martinique Street, Guadalupe
And if you
Street.
recall, guys, later on when we were all running around in that area, that road Thatcher Street there was the one that went down to the ferry.
Right.
And in our era, you could still go down. That's where you'd go get bait. Remember, they'd have the guys having you could get the shrimp bait and stuff to go fishing. You run down there to get it. Or if you had your skimboard, you can go down that way to go down and go skateboarding down
Right.
on the water down there.
Beach by the
Yeah.
peninsula.
All right. So
Peninsula, exactly.
let's go to the next one. So now you've kind of got your lay of the area. This one's a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
But you can
They're
see,
packed too. Those houses, they're compact.
Well, you can see where the occupational school and that leads right into the tank farm there on the edge there that you were just talking about.
right,
That perspective there.
right.
And how close that was to the yacht club. You didn't even realize how close it really was.
Oh yeah, it's not that far.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah, but yeah, you can see there's these houses. They're it's dense. I mean, there's like 3 stories each of the house. The ground floor probably didn't have any living space on them necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, it was pretty compact.
Yeah. In other words, La Boca had a lot more residents back then than it did when we grew up in there.
Right, and you can see the church on the far right side. It sticks up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And then to the left would be about where the gas station is, and then there was always like a field between the gas station and the homes, like a vacant lot right there.
Yeah, maybe open for expansion.
Right, and you can see the ferry in the middle of the harbor there.
Sure is, right in the middle, going across.
All right.
That's interesting.
So that's,
and that must be what a
so let's
dredge
go on
next
to
to
the
it,
next
isn't
one.
it, in the water there? Probably. Showing quarters for
So
silver and
this
quarter.
is
There you go.
a little bit different angle, but this is 1914. So you can see most of the houses were there. There's not as many as in the previous image.
Sure, they were still building it.
So they're still building it. So it's probably was occupied sometime after this. It doesn't look like this is really ready for habitation.
You can see.
But you never
you
know.
Can see El Prado. You can see it on the right there. El
You
Prado.
can see it. Right. It
Yeah,
doesn't look as
sure
big
is.
though.
No, it doesn't. It does look a little bit more narrow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah,
Interesting.
I think it is a little bit narrower, but it's hard to tell because the
Yeah.
Prado really isn't. It's only 110 feet wide. It's not that wide.
Sure. Yeah, and we're not sure the length of these houses to give it that perspective. We're
Yeah.
used to seeing a different kind
But
of
one
house
of
in
those
that
maps
location.
has a scale on it, so I can figure it out.
Okay. Cool.
Um, so this next one is interesting too because you can see all these like farm fields
Right.
that are there. So um, and you can start to see like the trees on the Prado. They're taking root. They're getting a little bit of height to them, right?
Right.
And then you can see
Yeah. Yeah. Back
that
then, you didn't have the landscaping you'll have like you have today, where
right.
you have an area that's all dirt, and then 3 weeks later, it's full of grass and a 15-foot tall tree. How did that happen?
Right.
This
And I
stuff they actually
forget
grew it.
what pier this is, but on the far right, that's the wharf. It's been listed as the wharf, and
Okay.
so the interesting thing about the Panama Railroad, when it was originally built, the concession said that they would extend the railroad out to Perico Island
Yes.
because Perico Island was the port. The ships used to have to dock out there where the water was deep, and the goods would have to be put on a tender and then brought in. And so when the part of the contract was you're going to extend out to there, and every year you don't, you have to pay us $200,000.
Which is a massive amount of money back then.
And 20 years later, they still hadn't built it.
That's
And
incredible.
and instead of like losing that, what the railroad decided to do was to say, hey, we'll build a wharf here instead. And so that was kind of the compromise. Instead of extending the trestle out to Perico Causeway,
Right.
they would build a wharf here. And then the French had started digging their canal. And if you look at the old French route, it was coming right out of La Boca, and then it was taking a turn between the La Boca shore and Perico Island. The French canal was going to go basically cut where the Officers Club is in Amador. That was going to be
Right.
the channel.
That was the canal route.
Right. So, the French dug that first 5 miles first, and so if you look at the old writings, it says that first 5 miles was completed in like 1887 or something like that, and so ships could come in and use this wharf before
Oh, that's what
before
the
the
wharf. Because
canal
otherwise, I was
was
going to say, well,
finished.
because otherwise you're still using
You
tender
could
containers
use
for
the
nothing.
wharf.
Interesting.
So, all right.
Very interesting.
So this says 1920. So it's just a few years past.
Right.
19, all right. So let's go to the next one.
Okay.
And all right. So
And this
this
is
one says
46.
1946. I don't think it is actually. If you look at those trees on the Prado, they don't look
Yeah,
like
they
they're
didn't grow a whole lot.
all right. So that's where when you look at stuff, you always have to question about what it is. But what I circled in this image, and this is from Bill McLaughlin. He's Panama Canal Society
Yeah.
former president, and he's got on his site he has got the resources. But I noticed in this image was the tram car. That's a streetcar,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what the heck is that thing? I'd never heard of that. And so there was an
Tram to
image.
La Boca.
So we're going to talk about the tram car. That's why I've paired these two together because um, it served them. And so here's a picture of the tram car in the book. So this is like a ground view of those houses that we're seeing. 1941, and so they had the tram car. Basically, the tram car went from Casco Viejo area to the port, to the wharf, but it
Right.
also served La Boca because it was on the route.
Sure.
And
Interesting.
so go to the next one, and this is it's just down La Boca Road. This would be the road that turns up Tavernia Street.
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind
Okay.
of see St.
Okay.
Mary's.
So almost looking from the Elks Club.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
No,
more like
before.
the gas station.
Hmm.
Okay. A little further up the road.
Yeah,
Okay. Right
yeah,
on.
yeah. And that's the admin building. Um,
In the
Kind of
distance.
you
Yeah.
can
Look at
see
that.
it. It's like a shadow in the back.
Yeah.
And then these other buildings are just buildings that are on um, across from the Union Church and stuff. And then these houses are on Tavernier Street that go up. If you went up, you'd come out on the where the Balboa pool is
Correct.
on the other side. But you could see the tracks. And Will, you're asking about the tracks if they're still there. I bet you they just laid pavement over them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's under
Yeah,
I'd spend
Leboca
the
because
money
Road
to rip them
somewhere.
up.
I don't recall seeing them growing up there.
No, no,
No. Mm-mm.
no. I never saw tracks anywhere. But just like anything, if you can cover it over with concrete or asphalt, why dig it up?
Why dig it
Correct.
up?
All right.
Have to work.
All right. So go on to the next one. And this one, this is, it was called the Balboa Restaurant when it was first
Correct.
built. And then it became the police station. But this is on Leboca Road. So this is just down the street from that previous picture. And you can see the streetcar
Yeah.
in that image as well. And you see the old Chiva bus.
So
And
behind that to the left there would have been you'd be looking at the YMCA.
yeah, behind there where those trees are in the back.
Yep.
Right.
Interesting. That's cool.
All right.
Very cool.
So this is why I wanted to talk about the tram and Leboca kind of in the same sentence because there's some context with that tram that's in there. But then I found these interesting things when I'm looking at this image and it said in 1931 all employees of the Panama Canal and the Panama Railroad, and you talked about that earlier, the U.S. bought the railroad when they got all the canal holdings from the French because they had
Sure.
purchased the Panama Railroad. But
Yeah.
they were fingerprinted by the zone police detectives for identification purposes. There were 20,000 people working there, or at least U.S. people, and there was another 20,000 West Indians. So I'm wondering if the the police department has those fingerprints of all those former employees.
Right. It'd be interesting. It would be
And
up
if
in the
they have
Library
a
of Congress, I would
photograph
think,
that
or
goes with
something.
the fingerprint or not, did they have to take a
Sure.
photograph, or how do they? I mean,
How do
it's
they assign it to somebody?
yeah. And how did they get everyone's permission? I guess they said you work for us, we do what we want.
Yeah, back then it
Back
was probably a
then,
lot
but could
easier
you
back then to
imagine
do it.
if your boss said, "Hey, we're going to fingerprint all of you guys"? I
Yeah, what do
just
you do?
thought
You're gonna say no and get
that
put
was
on a ship
amazing.
back to Barbados? I don't think so.
Okay. So then it also went on to say that in 1943 they dropped the term first class policeman, and then all officers except those of rank would be referred to as just policemen. Um, and then they were differentiated between the gold rolls and silver rolls.
Interesting. So even in law enforcement, they had that.
Yeah. And then it goes on to say that in 44 they released a number of employees, and that some of them worked on construction camps and housing areas. So it makes it sound like there was still a lot of like things still going on, being built. Um,
Yeah, a
and
lot
then
of
maybe
construction
they
still going
finished
on.
those and they don't need those policemen anymore. But it said they dropped it down to just having enough, the minimum force required to efficiently police the zone.
Huh.
So so they got rid of people over time. It wasn't that once you got hired, you were always there.
Right. Look at that. And John Hughes was chiming in. His mother told him about taking the streetcar to Panama limits. That's
Yeah,
cool. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
funny. I learned another story unrelated to this, but talking to Fran Hearn a couple of years ago, growing up, they all grew up in Gamboa, and they would take the train to Balboa on Friday nights, but they had to leave by 9 o'clock to catch the last train back to Gamboa.
Yep,
Otherwise, they're
yep.
stuck in Balboa for the evening.
I bet.
Just
Yeah,
fun,
well,
fun little
we would
stories
take the
like that.
Saka bus to
Right.
Albrook dances, and if you weren't on the by 10 o'clock, you got left. Had to walk home.
Yeah, either call somebody or you're walking.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go on to the next one. So another image from Salsa Hill. The trees look a little bit higher,
Right.
right? You can't really
Hmm.
tell there's houses there. A lot of trees now. So it's probably
Yeah.
like, this is probably 46.
Right. Yeah. But there's still the tall houses. It's still on the stilts and stuff. So we know that this is
Right.
still
And then
old
there's
Laboca.
some on this side of La Boca Road. And some of those images we didn't see any.
Correct.
All right. And then go
Yeah.
to the next
Interesting.
one. And this is an aerial view. This is from
Oh
earlier.
yeah.
Um, and you can see this image in the Prado, it looks like they have trees going down the center of it now.
They sure do. They sure do. And they look quite large.
Yeah. Right. You can see the church
Huh.
is in the foreground on the right side
Mm-hmm.
and stuff
Yeah.
like
That's
that.
definitely taller than the one next to it.
And then
Yeah, Lobo had a lot of get-up trees that I remember.
yeah, they probably did have a lot of get-up trees.
Probably what you're looking at there,
Interesting.
get-up trees.
Yeah, but
Huh.
you could tell it must have been a pretty close knit community because those houses are pretty close together and they look like they're more they're 4 families, 8 family houses.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? If you're looking at that Prado, those trees that are along the edges, they look like they're on the outside, not in the Prado itself. So I wonder if this, although it says 54 though, so did they just give up on growing the palm trees and just let this stuff grow there? I guess.
Probably. So
Okay.
let's go to the next one. So
Yeah.
this is the commissary, and I guess this arcade on the side is the one that goes along. I guess it's called Martinique Street, but
Right.
it wasn't there. I mean, of course they took the arcade off, and then the entrance into the printing plant would have been where these 2 windows are in the front, right? That center
Correct.
window.
Correct. And
And
behind that
then,
was where the dorms started, the college dorms that
right,
we knew.
exactly, and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay.
So go on to the next one. And so this is another picture of that commissary, but from across the
Sure.
street. And it almost doesn't even look like a road, but there's a road there going
Yeah.
by
Right.
that. And it's
Interesting.
got the tree, so it's kind of shady, which is
Yeah.
probably there's no AC in these photos.
Right.
So
Oh, no
it was
kidding.
hot. It was hot.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go on to the next one. And the other interesting
Sorry.
thing that I found out about during this time is that in 1941, the new Panamanian Constitution, it prohibited the immigration of people, the black race whose original language is not Spanish, the yellow race, and the races of India, Asia Minor, and North Africa. They were stripped of their citizenship retroactively. So if you had been born Panamanian, but you were from the West Indies, you were no longer Panamanian. You were British again. And then, so if your father or mother, even if you're born in the Republic, it was taken away. And of course, you weren't American either. And so about 51,000 people that were in Panama lost their citizenship.
Wow.
So it's just
Now,
one of
did
the
this force them to have to
one of the
leave
things
the
that
country,
that
or
happened to these canal workers that
sure?
um,
Where's all the thanks
just
for the
one more
sacrifice?
thing, and it's going to be important when I read some of the stories they tell you about. We'll go on to the next one. So this is the Silver Clubhouse. This would have been at the end of the Prado,
Yep.
and on the right side you can see dispensary. So that was like a healthcare
Sure.
facility, and then the clubhouse, and clubhouse looks very similar to what the old clubhouse in Balboa used to look like. It used to have a covered entranceway like that, and then a second story.
Yeah.
Very similar.
And they were obviously in some kind of a period of mourning then, because if you notice the flaggers at half
Yeah, the
staff.
flag's at half staff, right? And I would imagine if you go to 1946, you could figure out maybe who that was. But
Right.
and then that white building in the back, in the end is their theater.
Right. Interesting. Wow, this is fascinating. Never had any idea that this was La Boca.
Can you imagine? Yeah. I mean, all this stuff,
Right.
I had no idea.
And they basically, it looks like most of it was just raised. They just took it all down and started over
Absolutely. Okay,
because
so
it
we'll go
doesn't
on.
resemble this at all.
Yep, gone. So let's go to the next one. This is the interior. They had a soda fountain in there in the clubhouse. I don't know if the Balboa one had a soda fountain. I think the bowling alley had one, maybe.
Okay,
But
interesting.
that that's a '50s type of thing, right? You always see in the '50s, you go
Certainly.
to the soda shop and stuff like that, and so
Hmm.
that was kind of interesting to see. Um, I guess that's where you go hang out,
Root
and
beer
Sure.
then
floats.
and go on to the next one. And these are the churches. I I know one of the churches there is now made out of concrete and stuff, so maybe they rebuilt one of them,
Okay.
or
Which
maybe
would
there
make
were
sense because
more.
they took it
Maybe
all
there are
down, it
more than
seems.
two churches in that neighborhood. I'll need to study the map some more. Um, but I think St. Peter's and then the Methodist Church are back to back. One's along the Leboca Road and the other one's behind it. I could be wrong, but I think that's um, I think St. Peter's
Interesting.
Episcopal is the one that's along Leboca Road. Um, and those are neat looking churches. And then the next one, it's a street scene. And what I found kind of interesting in this is that there's no sidewalk.
No.
The streets are really narrow. Of course, I would imagine when this was built in 1914, no one had a car.
Right. Which I guess maybe this you walk most on the street, but
You
you
walked
would
in the
think back
street
then
instead of
there's
the
more pedestrian traffic than car traffic.
yeah, but you actually don't even see any people either. So
No.
and then um, the stairs. There's two sets of stairs, so there's at least two families. And I don't know if these are duplexes or if they're quadruplexes. The houses in the back don't look like they're 2 stories, so they probably had a mix
Mm-mm.
of housing types
Sure.
in there.
Yep. And John Houston's chiming in. The Balboa Clubhouse had a soda fountain. It was by the back stairs to the pool. Interesting. Because then back in the day, that was the way you went out. Whereas later on, you had to go out the front, and then there was a walkway between the theater and the clubhouse.
Yeah, I
That was the
remember
way to get to the
there
pool.
was a bakery, a donut shop, and
Yeah, that's what I
then
remember.
there was like a safety office. I
Huh,
don't.
okay.
So they probably took out the soda fountain by the time I was there.
Maybe. Interesting.
All
Cool.
right, so let's go on to the next one. Is some more street scenes. This one has a sidewalk on the right side, but not on the left side.
Yeah,
Um, and it almost looks like a pine tree. I don't know what the heck
sure
that tree is,
does.
but it's just not
See, very out of place there.
a little different, but kind of stark. Not a whole lot of. You think they always talk about the canals on looking like a country club. Not so much here.
No, no.
All
And
right, and
interesting, look how bowed those roads are for rain and flooding
yeah,
and
right,
whatnot.
exactly,
But very narrow still, nonetheless. They definitely weren't set up for a lot of car traffic.
right. So
Wasn't the
then,
expectation there.
yeah, and then this next image, it's a one-story house, and it kind of reminds me of what I lived in a house like this in Gavlin area. It was a little bit
Okay.
higher, so we could park underneath it and stuff, but
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
similar.
Diablo had a
Yeah.
couple houses like that too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on Amador Road, that's the way all the houses were. Or
yeah.
where you lived
Oh,
in
that is
Amador Road, they
swimming
were like
pool.
that.
I need to look at Edith Barkowitz's book to see if she has these housing types in there.
Oh yeah, right
Because she
on.
has all the
Yeah.
housing, all the buildings in there.
Yeah. For
So it'd
those
be
of you guys that
interesting to
don't know
see
what
if
he's
the
talking about, it's
Silvertown architecture's in
Edith
there.
Barkowitz Crouch go on to Amazon. She has a wonderful book on the architecture of the canals and Panama. But I mean, it's a huge book. It's a
Hmm.
fantastic book. The drawings in there, the history, the stories behind it. I mean, a wonderful, wonderful book. If you really want to look at a book about all that amazing housing and architecture and buildings, check that book out, guys, because
All
it
right,
is it is
all right,
definitely a just
all right.
awesome book.
Well, I gotta move on. We got a lot to cover. Let's go on to the
Yes,
next
we
one.
do.
The next one is this must be Jamaica Prado, and it looks like they had started with
Yeah,
coconut palms,
yeah, they don't
not
look like royal
not
palms.
royal palms. Those look
Correct.
like coconut palms to me.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do. They sure do. But nothing else in the middle, as you notice
Yeah,
that.
but
And that does look more narrow than the El Prado in Balboa. Even from that angle, it doesn't look
Field.
quite as
yeah,
wide.
and
Yeah.
no sidewalks.
Correct.
So
Correct. And here's another. I guess it's another end of it. It's the other end probably.
yeah, probably the other end. If you look at it, it kind of like a T shape or a cross shape, and so this might be one of the cross things, and that one has, that royal palm is in the middle.
Yeah. And that one does look like a royal palm versus the other
Yeah,
ones that look.
right.
Oh, that's
Those
definitely Royal Palm. Yeah.
right, and I don't know how many residents live in those houses, but those look like at least like 8 family.
Yeah, I would think.
All right. So their school had a yearbook, and the yearbook was called the Lebokan.
Okay.
So did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I do know that if you want to check that out, guys, go to the Panama Canal Museum collection because they have them all
Exactly.
digitized
This
there.
is exactly where I got it from. All right.
Right on.
So let's go to the next one. And this is the school. This was the Leboka School. That's that red roof building that we
Oh
saw
yeah,
from
okay.
the ferry.
Sure
So it was a
is.
pretty large structure.
It was.
And
It
look at
was.
all those kids out there, man.
Hmm.
There's a couple hundred kids. So
Oh yeah, every bit
um,
of it.
yeah. So that
Interesting.
was that was a pretty
It's a big community in the book, and it was
community,
its
really.
own community. It had everything within. You didn't have to leave the community
Nope.
for shopping, for entertainment, for education.
Well, you couldn't.
Yeah, I guess not, unless you got on the tram.
Yeah. Yeah, the tram, exactly.
But
So
no, you're
go
right.
to
You
the
could.
next one.
Otherwise, to go to Panama.
Go to the next one. They had a school song. You guys, who wants to read it?
Ricky said he wanted to read. I saw his hand go up.
These classes suck. Somebody else.
Where the ships of many nations sail across the narrow land, where the waters so Pacific gently kiss the tropic strand. There you'll find our junior high school with its wealth of life's best joys, dealing out its stores of learning to a crowd of girls and boys. Right on. And in the alma mater, proud of thy name we were, happiest on the isthmus. Thus must it ever to fan by the faithful trade winds warmed by the tropic sun. Oh, sing forever, our junior high school, the pride of the zone. Ah, very good. Look at these
Children of the
people.
Canal Builders. Heirs tested brawn and brain. So it sounds like they were very proud of their
Certainly
school
were.
and their heritage. And so go on to the next one. Um, this one is a poem about their school. School in a village not far from the sea, built in a spot that's so cool and lovely. From the north, south, east, and west, our junior high school, La Boca, is the best. So, you read stuff like this in some of these publications that are out there that I found, and everybody kind of talks about um, good life and family and those types of things.
Yeah,
So,
the Panama Canal Zone
right.
experience
So,
was good for
but
everybody, it seems.
yeah, and I was telling Will the other day, it's like, so I see La Boca School and all this other stuff, and I'm looking in the Canal record. There's no mention of these places.
None whatsoever.
They did.
And either bigger stuff that Dave's going to mention here that none of it is uttered at all. You got to look for it to recognize it.
Yeah. So the next one they talk about alumni. So they have their alumni and say what's happening with some of the people that were here, and it talks about you know Cleo and James. They're all now at the Balboa Heights, and these guys are working at the quartermaster's office, and they got the payroll and mechanical division has these guys working at it. And Jennings Blackett is a champion sprinter of the last Central American Olympics, and now he's pursuing a course of dentistry at Xavier University in New Orleans and stuff.
That's
So a lot of
awesome.
these folks, they graduated in La Boca, and then they went and they worked for the Canal. And you
Sure.
probably, when you went wherever you went to, these were the people were educated in the Canal Zone and worked for the Canal. So
Yeah.
they just like we did, but it was a
Yeah.
different system.
Yeah.
But
Sure
they
was.
they went in, So go on to the next one. So this is that guy Jennings Blackett that talks about the Olympics thing, and so he was a track athlete from La Boca, and he ran track and field at Xavier, and this is him in there, and there was a whole system of athletics that these communities put together, not only at La Boca, but Rainbow City and Red
Right.
Tank and other places. They were they were they had athletic clubs. They they would teach them tennis. A lot of them were extremely gifted tennis players and would get scholarships to go to the U.S. and play tennis in the U.S. They were track stars. They would run at a different sporting events, as Panamanians because
Right.
they weren't U.S. And so they'd win gold medals and such. But then, like I was telling you, at some point they were told, "You're not Panamanian anymore."
Right.
um,
Thanks,
and
but no
so,
thanks.
but but it's amazing when you read about all these people how they were they were educated and they were trained and they were taught. If you have this skill like that as an athlete, you can get a scholarship and then you can go like to the US and you get an education. And so
Sure.
they were teaching their kids how to do this and then they'd come back and do it. So it's really fascinating to see. So let's go on to the next one. Um, so then this is written in 1944, I believe. But it talks about they called them Negro schools at one point. Um, and you can't read this, but basically what it says is that you know we we're we're at the Negro schools in the Canal Zone, and we're of West Indian descent. We never lived there. We've always been living in the Canal Zone, but um, now we're not. Um, we're not Panamanian. We're not American. We're British,
We're back to
and
West Indians.
and we're not Panamanian enough because we don't speak Spanish. And so
Right.
they're talking about this kind of like we're kind of stuck. And it goes on to say there were 20,000 Negroes living in the Canal Zone in 1930, and only 18,000 whites, and half of them were military.
Right.
So they were the majority living in basically in a country that was part of another country. So they just kind of had this odd man out type
Yeah.
of feeling in there. But go on to the next one, and what I'm trying to get at is that this is in 1942. They start talking about this issue where, okay, we graduated from La Boca School, and we're Panamanians, and we feel like we should be able to go on and get like education in Panama, but they're not accepting us because we don't speak Spanish.
Sure.
So we're asking the Canal Zone government to teach us Spanish in the grade school. So when we graduate, we have a chance.
Right.
So
Interesting.
so they're doing that. So this next woman on the next one, she comes up in some of the write ups. Her name was Enid Hall, and go on the next one, and it says that she spent her life living in the Canal Zone, graduated from the school system, and was the she was a bookkeeper at the Balboa Heights Luncheonette Supply Division, and then she worked for the Red Cross, and then she retired after 37 years of service. So some of these folks, they lived there for a long time
Sure did.
and
Sure did.
contributed to the canal, um, doing their parts for the jobs that they were allowed to
Yeah.
get. And then going on to the
Right.
next one is talking about the athletics. So here are two women, and they competed in the 1938 Central American Olympic Games. And this woman on the
Right.
left, she won gold medal in the 100-meter dash and what are the 100-meter relay and
80
the
meter
80-meter
hurdle.
hurdle.
Right.
And so she was never more proud to be a Panamanian, but she was living in La Boca probably, and so um, so they were at one point they say that Panamanians were always happy for us to win gold medals, but that wasn't enough. Um,
But not happy enough to
yeah,
win
yeah,
citizenship.
you're still not Panamanian type of thing.
Right.
Um, then and also one of the woman on the right, um, there one of the articles said that they were questioning her citizenship. So even back then, it's like, are you Panamanian or are you British or what
Right.
are you? Because you're, um, disqualify her because of you can't prove
Sure.
your citizenship. That
She's
type
like,
of
I don't
thing.
know, but I'm keeping this medal.
Yeah. So another name that comes up quite a bit in some of these writings is the name Parchment, Coach Parchment. And I remember when I went to high school, one of the ladies working there was a Parchment, and I think we
Okay.
even might have had some students there and stuff. And so it's just like the Zonian families that we know it's long history, but there you look at these and there's some names that go way back
Sure.
as
They're
well too. So I remember
multi-generational.
Parchment name, but this guy he he trained a lot of the athletes, and they had all these different types of sporting clubs. This one talks about Club Mercurio, where they trained
Hmm.
athletes and stuff, and it went on to different sporting events and gold medals that they won. And then the woman in the previous picture on the right, she ended up going to Tuskegee University.
Okay.
Some of the others went to Tennessee State, and then they participated in the the Summer Olympics, and they were the first women to compete in the Summer Olympics for Panama.
Wow.
Um,
Very much pioneers.
Pioneers. So just things that you read about, and you would think that how cool is that? All these people did all these things, and you never really ever hear about them.
Yeah.
So this next one, the same woman, this is her running. She was called Charlotte Gooden. Then she got married, so she had the name. It escapes me. It's on the next one, but she won all types of medals. But then it said that the um, um, there was a new treaty, and when the treaty happened, I guess this was in the 50s. Um, they started transforming the Canal Zone school system. So the white schools were converted, um, um, and then the colored schools were converted. They call Negro schools. They were converted into Latin American schools for Panamanians,
Mhm.
and that's when they started
Oh,
teaching Spanish as the principal language in those schools. So I guess if you
Yeah,
went to school at
interesting.
Paraiso and those other
very
places,
so right.
it was in Spanish.
Correct.
So in essence,
Um,
Panamanian schools more so than
right.
American
So
schools.
we went to schools, but we didn't have our school in Spanish. We could take Spanish, but it wasn't like you're going to learn Spanish. But part of this goes back from 9 years earlier when people are saying, "Hey, we can't get into Panamanian schools because we don't speak Spanish."
Sure.
So there were all types. The treaties changed things for these folks, and
Interesting. Because even
so,
St. Mary's was an English curriculum, with the
right,
Spanish, but it was
right.
still a
So
English
then
based school.
when you look like at the back of the yearbook and they have sponsors and stuff, go to the next one. You see names like the Star on Herald. They printed and stuff, and the Sears store. I don't know if you remember the Sears store on 4th of July Avenue and stuff like that. But there are all
Hmm.
types. You go on to the next one. There are all types of businesses that are showing up, and like, where the heck were those things? Were they like in people's houses in La Boca?
Right.
But here's like, there's all these clubs that they had. Um, so it's like, where did they do all these things? Because like there's like pages and pages of different clubs and activities and stuff, and so
Yeah. Every sponsor there but
these
one is in La Boca.
yeah, and there's pages of them. So
Right.
and the next one,
So it's a thriving community.
thriving community. Yeah, lots of stuff. You never read about it in the record. It's like they don't
Right.
talk about
You,
any of
you
that stuff.
don't. You really
So
don't.
then you get like compliments from the Gamboa School, compliments from Springfield Social and Athletic Club. You're like, what the heck is that?
Right.
Um, I never was in that club. I mean, what is it?
Right.
And then to go on the next one, it's best wishes from Silver City School. Where's that at? I think that's Atlantic side.
Wow.
And then Red Tank School. And
Sure.
so, but you'll never read about those schools in the Canal Record. Um,
Right.
they don't. They
It's a
don't.
whole nother part
It's
of our
yeah.
history
It's
that we
like
don't
they
know
were their
about.
own system, and all these things. And then notes of alumni, and it talks about all these different people, like where they ended up, what they're doing. A lot of them became teachers on
Hmm.
that list. Um, uh, so it was just kind of interesting to see how they all kept track of each other over the time.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
in 1944, 1943, they created a normal school. And I guess that's one of the things that's called vocational schools or occupational schools. I don't
Okay.
know.
I
I
know.
guess it's vocational. But basically, normal school is a teacher's college. And so they set up a
Okay.
teacher's college so that if anyone that wanted to be a teacher and teach in a Latin American school,
Sure.
or you could do that. And
There's your
so
conduit there.
so the next image, it's showing um, kids getting the key to the first dormitories that were set up for the Atlantic Siders to go to normal school in La
Oh,
Boca.
very good.
And apparently this house was like not suitable to live in, and they ended up building some like 12 dorms by
Oh,
the
wow.
school.
Okay.
But
Nice.
we know the dormitories, but this is probably the history of that.
Yeah, certainly.
So, so then inside the school, library looks like any library that you might know. The next go to the next image. It's got another picture of the
Sure.
library and stuff like
Reading
that.
tables.
Yeah. Um, so this survey was basically, it's like, would you house a student in your house? And some people said no. Some said yes. Some said they'd let someone stay in their house for $10 a month or something like that. So then they decided, well,
Yep.
we don't have enough support here. We're gonna have to get our own dorm. So that's um,
Sure.
and
It
then they
probably
have
ended up being cheaper in the long run anyway.
this class history that talks about like where they had their dances, and they went
Sure.
to, I can't read it. It's called
1941.
Circle Esplanade, and they went to San Carlos, so they went to do certain things, and it's like places I've never heard of, but
Right.
it's just kind of interesting.
A whole other history of the zone that we never knew about.
Yeah. Then this last
Yeah.
one, go to the next one. The
And Vern Couturier in the chat is saying that Silver City was also called Rainbow Cities here
yeah,
in Atlantic side. So, okay,
yeah.
right on. Thank you, sir.
So El Pacifico was one of the schools, and you can see it's in Spanish.
Yes.
And basically this edition of this yearbook was dedicated to Mr. Parchment. I think El Pacifico was the yearbook for Paraiso High School, actually, but
Okay.
it's in Spanish because 1958. I think it moved there. And then you go on the next page, and then it says in English, this is what it says. So that they they translated it in English, and this is what the other part says. And then it goes on to talk about how Mr. Parchment was originally from Jamaica, and he graduated top of his class, and then he was one of the best athletes in Jamaica, and then afterwards he immigrated to the Panama Canal and was one of the youngest teachers in the school system. And then he goes on and he has this long history there. But he was one of the activists that fought against racism, and was a teacher and a coach, and was one of the first instructors at the La Boca Normal School. And he taught gardening and other types of things. And so he was one of those community members that
Sure.
I bet if you talk to a lot of people in this community, they would all know who that man was.
Right.
And
Certainly. Someone that was very much an influencer.
yeah. So just kind of one of these individuals that gets upheld.
Right.
But one
Let's
of the
recognize
things
that
that it goes
as you
on to
totally
say
should.
is that He won the Vasco Nunez de Balboa Order. So we've shown that medal
Wow.
that Eisenhower got and some of the
Yeah.
other people got. He actually was awarded that medal as well.
That's amazing.
And then
Good for
it
him.
says in the 1950s, the Canal Zone government began gradually relocating residents from the town on the Pacific side and elsewhere. It was called the Quarters Relocation Program, aimed to demolish Silver Roll towns and rebuild them with higher quality housing for Roll employees. Among the demolished towns were Red Tank, Pedro McGill, and La Boca.
Yeah.
So,
There it is.
so that's where you would say what happened to all that. They just tore them down.
Torn down,
But it
started
says it
over.
took about 10 years, beginning in 1950. They closed the commissary in 1958, and it New La Boca began in 1959.
Oh wow. Okay. Nula
All right.
Boca.
So then the next one is just basically saying that the La Boca commissary is closing. Keep going, right there. And then the next one is the new town is rising from the old site. And so that's what we know, right?
Right.
We know that. And I think I might have run about out of time. What do you think?
Yeah,
You
that's
guys ready
probably a
to
good
go?
spot to switch over. And well, you know what? We can run maybe another 10 minutes or so.
All right. Okay. So this is the Panama Tram. It's also called the Panama Streetcar, and also in Spanish, Tranvia.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the limits of Balboa. This would be 4th of July Avenue
Yes.
going into Balboa.
Yep. And former
And
New England
I don't
Patriots
know who the
quarterback
heck
was the
would
owner of
name a
this building,
place
apparently.
Tom Brady's, but oh my God. But anyway,
How about that,
it must
huh? The guy's everywhere.
everywhere. But you can see the tracks in the road.
Yeah.
So it's coming down Balboa La Boca Road, and it's going in through Trujillo, in um, I guess it's Calle B,
Okay.
Calle C, and then down to the National Palace, the cathedral down that way.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is if you go down into Casco Viejo, in some areas you can see the old tracks. And so there were actually two tram companies. The first one during the French era was called United Electric Tramway Company, and it was actually the concession was given to a British company.
Interesting.
And I had originally thought, well, maybe that's why the the people drove on the other side of the road,
Right.
and because it was a British company that did it. And when I read stuff from the people that follow this stuff, it just says that they wanted to do it on the left side, and everyone said, okay, everyone else does it the
Just
other way,
because.
but do it your way. So it was like the Panama way.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and that started in about
Nothing's gonna change.
1893 when the French were doing their digging their canal. But as soon as the French went bankrupt, um, and the Colombia was in the Thousand Day War with Panama,
Right.
things went downhill, and it basically just pittered out by 1902.
Interesting.
It wasn't operating anymore. And then the U.S. came in, and in 1906, 1907, I believe, um, H.B. Hebert or something like that got a concession to start the tram company, and it was called the Panama Tramways Company. And this is a guy that had been working as one of the contractors that was digging the canal, like in San Pablo area. Um, there's some images that show his company working, doing some digging. And I guess when that job was done, he came and got another job building the railroad. Um,
Interesting.
and so that started it opened up in about 1912 and went to 1917, and then it was taken over by another company called Panama Electric Company, which was a
Okay.
subsidiary of General Electric. And so go on the
Oh, right
next one.
on.
So this is downtown Panama, and basically you can see like the American company car on the left and the old French British on the right. They're two different eras of
They
streetcars.
sure are.
Um, but they kind of worked in tandem together. So go to the
Interesting.
next
Yeah,
one.
probably the same routing. So
Yeah, and so this one is the old ones, and they had these aerial trams, that reached up and grabbed the electric line, and so you can
sure.
when you see that, this is an older picture. And the
Okay.
electric came from the Miraflores electric plant.
Oh, right
So
on.
so this was their schedule. This is an announcement in the Canal record that says, you know, it's going to be opening up the tramway. The American one's going to be opening up, and here's the schedule. It's basically starts at 5:40 in the morning, and then it runs until 11:45 at night.
Nice.
And it was 5 cents, but you couldn't
Jeez.
smoke, no dogs or other animals, and you had to no liquor and no disease.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the next
Well,
one is
gotta wear your mask.
the grand opening
Okay.
celebration for the U.S. company launch.
We got a white
All right.
uniform or a black uniform there.
Yeah. So go to the next one, and this is announcement in the Canal record that talks about that the tramway is opening, and so that basically is talking about that picture we just saw. H.W. Hebert was the company that did it, and they
Right.
actually opened on Saturday, September 27th, which was the day after the Gatun went through the locks for the first time. So one
Oh
day
wow.
later.
Okay. Interesting.
All right, and then just a street scene of the old tracks, early on, when they were building the first one.
Sure.
And then this is the next one is the limits. So this is coming down around 4th of July Avenue.
Okay.
And I guess the place was called the Limits as
Sure.
well.
That was the first version of El
Balboa
Rancho.
Best Beer Brewed.
Right. How about
All
that?
right,
Huh?
next one is just a turnaround of the streetcar downtown and around by the Cathedral, Bella Vista area.
And heading towards the
The next
canal
one
zone, it
is
says.
by the Cinco de Mayo Plaza,
Yeah.
coming
We can
down
see
because
that.
the route went to La Boca to the wharf, and then it went down this street out towards um, they had like a bull rink or something out there um, in Panama. So next one, this one looks like it's La Boca Road, and that's Sancon Hill before the quarry, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. I can see that.
hmm
Because some of those houses on the left will almost look like those
It,
remnants of those early houses from the French type. They were up on those
yeah.
hills.
It's hard to tell, but it looks like that's where that might be, like maybe where the police station is, if it was coming. I don't know, but
Hmm. Interesting.
hard to tell.
Interesting. Yeah. Right.
All right, and then this one is from one of the train conductors' scrapbook. His name was Lord Liverpool, and then it kind of
Ah, how
shows
about
the
that?
uniforms that they wore, these khaki
Yeah.
uniforms and stuff like that. And
Sporting
this
the
was
tie and the
the
conductor
next one
cap.
is a picture from his thing, just different, more pictures of the streetcar you ever
Oh, that's
want
how
to
you got
see.
around.
But then it goes on to say that they're removing the tracks from Ancon Hospital in the Tivoli because it's too noisy.
That's what that was. That's
They got
exactly
rid
what
of
that
it.
was.
They got rid of it. So
They really had palanca.
yeah. So then there's just another pictures of the trams. The next one says Panama Tramway Company. Um, and then the last one is just an interior photo.
Look at
And
that.
the conductors would move the seats the other direction when the train went the other way. I
Oh,
guess
so you're always facing forward.
yep, yep. And then the last one is a train ticket.
Tiquete de Bellavista, válido por un pasaje de colección entre Bellavista y Panamá. Very nice.
Right.
Look at that.
So
That was the
then
first ticket
the
too.
routes.
Ticket number one.
The next map shows the routes where it
Oh, look at that.
emanates from downtown Casco Viejo, and then it goes to La Boca Pier.
And that went way out there.
Yeah, it went out. It's called Sabana. I've read a lot of. I guess it was a very popular place to go on the weekends and stuff.
Okay.
Um, and by all accounts, the train cars were always full. I mean, it was very very popular thing to do.
I would think so. Probably a
Yeah.
convenient way to get around too.
So the next one just kind of zooms in a little bit to show more of the detail of where it went. Basically, La Boca Road or Balboa Road, La Boca, and then turned at where the police station is, and then went to.
Sure.
But it didn't go into Balboa proper.
No, it sure didn't.
Yeah. So
That's interesting.
and
Frangipani
then
Street. Look at that. There's Frangipani Street. That's so cool. And you can understand and relate to that now, where you could see that that's really Ancon, where the word Ancon is. That's the beginnings of Ancon Hill, the slopes coming
right.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the hospital. And
Yeah.
then this next one is a commemorative coin that was from a few years ago that someone's selling. But this group is preserving the history of the tram in Panama, and so it has some scenes from the Panama tram in there. And the gentleman that had this posted on Facebook, he gave me a number of these images that I showed tonight. So I want to thank him for doing that.
On.
So
On. No, this
that's
has been really, really
but I thought that
cool.
was pretty interesting because I never really heard about the tram before. I saw a photo
No.
of a tram in La Boca, but it survived until 1941, so it was there for 40 years.
Right.
So a lot of people grew up
It was
with
there
it.
for half of the canal zone.
Yeah, and so I mean, I imagine it also helped to transport Zonians into Panama and vice versa. It's
Certainly.
basically one of the ways to get around.
Anything you didn't get at the commissary there, you jump in the
Yeah,
tram and go to Panama to do your
yeah,
shopping. Go to remember the market down
yeah.
in Caledonia.
I wish it was there when we were there. Of course, we'd probably be upset that it moved so slow. But
Yeah, right.
San
And
Francisco
all your
has
other
nothing
friends go
on us.
passing
We have
by in
our
the
own
car. You're like,
streetcar.
damn. That is
So
so cool. That's
so
been absolutely
that's my
fascinating.
show for tonight.
No, it's been great, Dave. Listen, I mean, it's La Boca. We all knew La Boca is a completely different place, obviously, and the other interesting piece about it, and be it what it is, it's in our history nonetheless. But it is interesting and sad in many ways that there was such a vibrant community and life there and culture for many many years,
hmm
and unless you look for it, it's not there. It's not in the
Yep.
canal record and a lot of those things. And it really was, it was a different era. Let's be honest. It was a different era around the world and wasn't just something unique to the canal zone or the United States for that matter. But it was a sign of the times, and it's kind of nice to have access to this information now. And again, a shameless plug for our friends at the Panama Canal Museum collection. But if you want to learn about all this other history of the canal zone, two places to do it: the Panama Canal Museum collection, or obviously, the first Friday of every month here on our show with our Canal Zone historian Dave. But there really is a lot to the Canal Zone that we don't know, that we didn't know, and so it's always great to see that and see where we grew up and where a lot of our friends and their families grew up and what their history was like. 'Cause,
Well,
they were parallel but yet way different.
we had talked about the gold and silver earlier on, and then you noticed
Hmm.
that flag was at half staff, and it was an American flag.
Correct.
But I don't know how many Americans were actually living in that area. So it's kind of odd because it seemed like there were enclaves in the Canal Zone that weren't really American. I mean, they might have been controlled by American, but like for a while they were Panamanians.
For a while there, and then like you said, and then at one point they passed a law in Panama and said, "Sorry, not anymore. You're not."
Yeah.
And so now
So
what do? You're like, well, the Americans won't
yeah,
recognize us, Panamanians
yeah.
won't, and
So fly
and I grew up
fly
down here.
fly our flag in front of your buildings, but you're not
Right.
Panamanian. I mean, it's
Yes.
there's whole lot of, and you can look at all these things and you can just say things are like very hypocritical and all
Even
everything.
inside the school building, you saw the pictures there on the wall. They were of the U.S. president. you know, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the flag in there.
The
So I mean,
flag in
everything
there
about
too.
it was
Exactly.
homage to, you know,
Oh,
it was interesting.
right.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
the U.S.
as usual,
U.S. Navy.
our Friday nights of first Friday of every month, we learn some really really cool, fascinating things about the Canal Zone that
Hmm.
we didn't learn in the schools there. So we're very
Mhm.
fortunate to have you join us all the time, Dave, and do this, and
Yes.
Hmm.
really
I
appreciate you. Um,
forgot to wear
Look
my
at this
hat.
guy's pouring his Cafe Duran hat. There you go. Now you're official.
Yeah,
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that was
Heck
good.
yeah. No, absolutely
yeah,
good
yeah.
stuff. Well, Dave, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know everybody in the audience really appreciates learning something from you each time, and there's always several aha moments on these First Friday shows. So we really appreciate you doing this. Have yourself an awesome weekend, and we will look forward to talking to you again in about 30 days.
All right.
Thank you, David.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
Dave. We'll,
All right. Later night.
we'll see you.
Night.
That was cool, Mickey. That was again,
No,
it's a
I was,
fascinating
yeah,
history of the zone.
right, man. I was just listening. I had nothing to say because everything was new to me. I never heard of all this stuff. And
Yeah,
what I did like was the pride that that school showed, and that
really. I love how he pointed it out because it really is true. It's we look at what was going on there, and obviously, like I said before, the times that we were in, the era that we were in, but it's still not the best place to be at. And yet, to your point, they still had the pride in that and said, "Hey, I'm proud to be part of this community, part of this legacy, that helped build this incredible canal." And in spite of
yeah,
the way things are viewed and looked at, it's really
it's
cool, and it's good to see that.
they
It's a
had
cool sign of
everything they
humanity in
needed.
spite of everything.
Yeah. Everything they needed.
Yeah,
They had even a tram. I mean, that's beautiful. I love that story. Thank you very
yeah,
much, David. And
yeah.
listen,
And
all
and,
you
and
guys
Dave
out
does
there
it right, man.
that you stuck with us the whole 2.5 hours. Thank you so much, guys. Truly appreciate it. Yes, class of '83.
Yeah,
That was a good class. Those
no.
83 guys were all right, man. They were
Yeah,
tough
no, it
kids.
was, it was, they were, no, Dave's, I mean, this guy is just, you can tell, like I've said it before, he's got a passion for his history, and he's got a great legacy. His family has a
Oh
fantastic Canal
yes.
Zone legacy, and they're fortunate that Dave has carried that on and carried that story and shares it with all of us, and it's cool to
Mhm.
relate to it because we've all been there and we've all been a part of this, but it's nice to have somebody that can really go in depth and teach us what the essence of the Canal Zone was. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And as usual on Friday nights, we love having you guys on, learning all these really cool things. But next week, guys, a lot of really cool things going on. Don't forget that we're going to have a kind of a two-part show next week. The beginning, we're going to have Steve Tochterman joining us, talking about his book Final Flight, Queen of the Air, which is an intriguing story about cocaine trafficking and all that stuff, which we knew was at one point in the 80s was a big part of Panama, hence the invasion in '89 in Noriega and everything else. So that should be a lot of fun. And then we're going to have Matt Tomlett and Michael Yon joining us. Michael Yon, if you don't know who he is, look him up on Instagram, on YouTube. This guy is a war correspondent, a former Army Ranger, somebody that's very knowledgeable on geopolitics and Latin America and the Darien in particular. Him and Matt Tomlin have spent a lot of time in the Darien, so that's going to be a fascinating story to hear what's going on there because the story's not over with Darien. We do talk about, like Ricky said, 98% reduction in traffic and whatnot, but there's a lot going on down there that may or may not be a good thing. We'll see. It just depends on, I guess, how you look at it. So we're going to get a really cool perspective on that. And then, later on in the month, of course, we've got some other great stuff coming on. Rudy Waller joining us on the 18th with some El Valle baseball, some great stories there. And then towards the end of the month, the 25th, we're going to have Captain Andrew Titus join us. Hopefully, David Cohen can join us, Jim Duffus, and we're still trying to get a Marine traffic control person to give us that Gatun Locks transit story for that episode. So April is going to be a jam-packed month. I'm excited for it. And again, just really looking forward to spending time with you guys as we love to do on Friday nights, enjoying everything about the Yacht Club. Enjoy this video, guys. It's Panama Days by Mark Cicero. Mark, our condolences to the loss of your father. All the Cicero family. Joe Cicero, a great Zonian, will be missed. So rest in peace, Zonian. An uncle passed away in family as well. So nonetheless, guys, great spending the Friday night with you guys, sharing some great stories. Ricky, man, get us out of here, man. Thanks again for all your help with this, man.
Thanks, everybody. We'll make this short because we did run long, but thank you for sticking with us this whole time and being a part of the show. We really, guys, appreciate it. We love you very much, and we'll see you next Friday.
Yep, exactly. Have a great weekend, everybody. Salute, toast to everybody, and have a great, fantastic Zonian weekend, everybody. All right, Ricky, listen, man. Awesome show tonight, Ricky. Gracias, amigos, como siempre.
Gracias a ti. Yep.
Take care, everybody.